Dr. Hall, was there a video on how to use SPSS in resources? No, it might be making it up. There was never a video that you sent to us.
No, but there was a recording of the session in which we started working on it last time.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that's up there.
Video?
It's not up there?
I don't, because that was a class that George wasn't here, I don't think, and then he said he hasn't found it yet, right?
What's that?
When we went over the SPSS? That was when you were gone, or?
Yeah, that one was recorded.
Or the one that we were in the other classroom, wasn't right?
That's when we did it, yeah. We were upstairs,
One was upstairs.
218, but we didn't, yeah, we did do some SPSS on that one, yeah.
Yes, well, we did some last time too. Which was what, March 3rd?
Oh, 4th, yeah, I missed that, yeah.
That should be up.
Oh, that one is up, yeah.
Okay,
I don't know the
so
link.
you can refer to that one.
Okay, no, I thought there was a YouTube video.
I was supposed to be.
Okay,
But
there
there's plenty
is,
of them.
you're right, there is, and I think the link
My
is broken
experience is
on the
that,
341, but email Russ and send me the right link.
Okay. It was probably a rest.
my experience is YouTube video will cause you more trouble.
Oh, is
Yeah,
it? Okay.
it just never seems to work, but.
Okay, so this is March 25th version of data analysis information. So let's just check on something here. Meeting dates, how many do we have left?
Two after this one? Yeah.
2 after tonight.
Yeah.
Okay? All right, so with that in mind, anybody got a problem with bridges? My latency problem seems to have cleared up. However, one student who I thought it was a bit of a veteran indicated that he didn't understand a grade that I'd given on the forum. And one of the things I pointed out was the way I do this is I go to the grading function in the fora, and for each forum there is a grading function, so I can grade them separately. So when I click on grade, it shows me everybody in the course. And it provides a count of participation as Bridges calculates it. So it calculates the number of authored posts, the number of read posts, the number of unread posts, and then it calculates participation rate. So when I said to the student, your participation rate was very, very low. The argument ensued from him, not me, that couldn't possibly be because he'd been reading it and so on and so forth. And I said, well, here's the way you need to do it. So you go to the forum. If it says go to the next unread message, everybody gets that button, right? You click on it, you scroll down. Aren't there two little envelopes there? Okay, one of them says reply, and then one just to the left doesn't say anything, right? We've got to click that one off in order for the Bridges software to count that you read it. Now, it doesn't know if you actually read it, but it assumes that if you didn't click that off, you didn't read it. So by the time I look at the summary, that's what I got. So that participation rate then is judged against what I see in the threads, and I can look at your participation across the threads, and I can look at the individual threads themselves, so I see content. So I've got all that to look at. Be sure you use the reply button. I mean the red button, please. Thank you very much. Panopto. Let's be sure that we are sharing the Panopto video appropriately, because it's better to do it now than wait till May 6th when everything is over and grades are due and we spend an extra 2 weeks going back and forth trying to get your e-portfolio turned on and the PowerPoints showing and all those kinds of things. So In working with the group last night, Mr. Boschman and I came to the consensus that what seems to be the problem is the improper sharing of one or both of those elements. So be sure you're managing your Panopto video first correctly by sharing it, and then that link that it provides for you goes into the ePortfolio in the artifact section. One student said at the top, and I said, well, I saw yours there. And I did click on it, so you met the assignment, but generally it goes with the artifacts at the bottom of the screen, so you would be better off putting it there. So I think she's going to switch that. But then you have to make the ePortfolio available to everybody on the web, not just within the RWD community. If you do that, then you email me the link to the ePortfolio. I see the ePortfolio. I go into the specialized course or the core course. I click on the right course that we're talking about, and there's everything I need. I clicked on one video, and it loaded as if it were Panopto, and there were PowerPoint slides across the bottom, but nobody was there, and there was no sound. Now, when I pointed that out to the person who sent it to me, Ms. Lowe, that person reacted just as you did. So how could that possibly be? And I said, I don't know. All I can tell you, you're not there. I don't hear you. I don't see a script. All I see are PowerPoints and the little puzzle piece that fits into the screen when you're not putting a video in there.
Poor lighting.
That's the second issue. One student sent me a video, and the student is new, so when I say earlier in the semester, watch your lighting, apparently a person forgot it, so she's in the dark. I see an outline, sort of a silhouette, and I can hear a voice. And I think there's a white closet door in the back, but I'm not certain. So please be advised, watch your lighting. Critical. I can't see you. It's even worse if I can't see or hear you. So just be careful there. The ePortfolio we just talked about, rCloud. Everybody's got one. It's working. This is going to be increasingly more important as we start transitioning to the new building. Now, it's going to take a while, but gradually, they're not going to invest any more money in these resources that we have here. But that won't stop us because we got rCloud. And rCloud provides us access to all the software we need for writing, for calculating, for databases, for SPSS, and we don't have to worry about keeping up with the license. That all falls to the university, so we have the latest versions on rCloud. So you want to make sure your rCloud account is working. I think everybody had a chance to go through this in the previous weeks, but wouldn't be a bad idea to check to make sure yours is still working and that you do have one. Oh, but the other thing is, we're beyond halfway, right, in the semester? Okay, well, it's a heck of a time to discover that there's somebody who doesn't know how to use rCloud because he or she is using Google Chrome. rCloud won't work with Chrome. It's got to be Internet Explorer. And so it'll just sit there and spin and won't let you do anything. So now, if you have a Mac, there's special things you've got to do, Mr. Yost. Yeah, there's certain adjustments, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what can I say? Had a student claim the student couldn't get in touch with Russell Boschman. Does anybody know of any situation of that kind? No, I thought it was hokum, and I said as much, because that's not the way Russell operates. Now, if you don't call him, he doesn't know. If you call him but don't leave a message, he doesn't know. But if you call him and leave a message, I have yet to find the man not replying. I've called him on Sunday afternoons.
Yes.
And he responds. I don't like to do that, but sometimes the situation is warranted. He will pick up the phone and talk to you. So I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but whenever you hear anything like that, it's bunk. So tell them to go see Russell and call. If they don't have the number, whoever it might be, tell them to come to me, I'll give them the number. Or you give them the number. Well, Russell will help, there's no doubt about it. Okay? Okay, this just in. News you might be able to use. The 6th Annual Public Service and Leadership Conference is on May 6th. I'm going to be offering 3 points, extra credit, added on to the end of your Bridges score at the end of the semester.
So I'm excited.
What happened to
Well, your excitement is warranted.
the?
Before I finished that sentence last night, the student said, I'm there.
That-
So
what
apparently,
happened to-
it's
what
the
happened-
lure of the 3 points.
What happened to your 5 points?
Yes.
Yeah.
You
What
have
happened to your
5
five?
Well, that was reconsidered, Ms. Schwartz, and for a good reason. There were people who took advantage of that and got a bunch of points and then bothered to do other stuff. So
That's when you got 10 points extra credit. I remember.
I was trying to be generous and I got taken advantage of.
But 5 is it's
And-
good,
and-
right?
and
Because
we're
you
gonna
haven't
get
given us
points
another
for that.
1.
3 is what you're getting if you come,
Okay.
all right?
Never mind.
3,
Well, that's on May 6th.
all day, 9 to 2.
And then in the evening
And
here?
then we're coming back here in the evening.
Was it Bay Point Center? Is that what it is?
Yes, and if you come on May 6th, you'll hear Mr. Labonte.
Right, yeah, that's the date you had told me.
Right, because he's going to tell us. There could be questions, Mr. Labonte,
May 6th
and you know how I can be when it comes to questions.
It's RW in Bristol, right?
No, it's in Portsmouth. Portsmouth. Mr. Young?
I know last year I was able to go because my job allowed me to go during the day,
Yes?
but, was there an option where if we couldn't make it during the day because of work conflict, that we could come to the one at night here?
Yes?
And will we still be eligible for
Yes.
the 3 points? Okay.
What time's the night thing?
6,
Perfect.
roughly.
Awesome.
It's be informal. The idea is to circulate and to meet the folks that were the presenters and to ask the people and so on. Bring business cards. If you don't have any, go on Microsoft.com and make some. You want these folks to remember you. I want them to remember you. You never can tell what might happen. Phone call, encounter. I ran into a person in Penn Station. At rush hour. Out of the whole crowd, she saw me and I saw her almost at the same time. Well, serendipity happens. Are you ready? If it comes, would you recognize it? Or you can be like Logan, sit in the car smoking dope joint. Okay, we're covered on the May 6th, right?
that's in Portsmouth at the what location?
Faith
Eight
Point.
point.
8 point, you will not.
You can't make it there.
Yes. If you go down, I think the quickest way from here is 195 to Fall River, go into the big tunnel, come up, get over to the right-hand lane, you're going to take Rhode Island 24 south to Newport. Just stay on it, and there will be a Portsmouth exit sign, and there's enough
After you
view
go to the
space
bridge-
that you can see it right there. There's a golf course ahead of it.
Right. It's, after, you're gonna go over a bridge, and the second exit, the first exit is local, and then the second exit, the building's right there.
Right, if you take the first exit, you'll go past the golf course and end up in the same place, but.
And it says there too, Bay Point exit.
And you can see the signs, it's Roger Williams and everything, it's all right there.
It's really.
Unless it's snowing and foggy or something, you're gonna miss it. But
Well, May.
it's going to be May 6th. I
Yes.
predict the weather will be clear and warm.
I mean, that's the original. It still is the still a student dorm. At Bay. They still
Yes,
call it Bay
that is
Point.
correct. That's where much of the, I think they still put some students up there. But anyway, that's the deal on May 6th, right? Assignment review and due date. This comes directly from the announcement page under ePortfolio content. So let's see, what do we have coming up? We have writing assignment number 2, due April 1. April 1. I believe that's next week, isn't it?
Yes.
Just think-
A week from today. Remarkable.
Exciting.
You know, this semester, once we got past the nasty winter, it's starting to really rock and get past us here. All right, and then writing assignment 2, that's the Word version, please, not PDF, please. Word, so I can edit it, write in it. I can't do that in PDF. If you send me a PDF, you're gonna get like multiple emails from me sending back stuff that says sentence is wrong, what are you doing here, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, Mr. O'Malley?
If I remember right, did you say that you'll accept if we send in early, you'll do a one revision type thing and send it back to us before the submission?
That is true, Mr. Labonte. That is absolutely true. That's the one draft policy.
Okay, one.
Nice.
One draft, not 4. Not, here's a new one. I did what you told me, partly.
I found out what the problem was. with
The
what I was
problem?
sending you. I wasn't saving it, so the one I kept sending you was the original one.
Yes, I noticed that.
I was like, why is he ripping me apart? And then I looked and I was like, that's not the one I've been sending.
The correct file is always appreciated. So if April 1 is the deadline, then I will need the draft by, looks like to me, Sunday, March 29th. 72 hours. So let's see, that's April 1, there's a formal due date for that. Assignment for the video is due April 5, which is the following Sunday, 2 p.m. And then we are moving quickly to writing assignment number 3. How can that be? I got those reversed.
Your writing
The
assignment,
Word
that's supposed to
version-
be the May 9th.
Right, and I haven't, I didn't, I
And
thought I
then-
fixed it this morning, I beg your pardon, it's reversed here.
Yeah, and then,
So the written version of Word is due May 9. Now, if you wish a 72-hour window for May 9, which is a Saturday, then I would need the document in my inbox on May 6,
Yeah.
at 2 p.m.
72 hours.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so the Word version is due then, and then the following week, the 13th, no, the 11th. I'm
the
sorry,
11th,
which is Monday, the video version is due. There'll be a final reflections, it's also due, and that will be due on May 13th. All of this comes out on May 13th. If you have trouble meeting May 13th, be advised,
May
as they
7th.
say in the military, the grades are due May 19 by 5 p.m. If you need a little extra time, and I mean little, let me know. Don't just dispute. And don't tell me you want a one draft review on May 11th, when it's due. Follow me? All right. Questions by assignments, Mr. Labonte, you have a question?
Whenever you're done, I have some questions about the writing assignment number 2.
All right, well, we're going to do that in a moment.
Okay.
Are there any questions about the assignments as due and due dates? I've transposed May 11, May 9 on. I'm going to fix that this morning. It's your job to make me fix it.
Okay.
All right. Any questions about that? No? Okay. Then,
Yeah, that's-
assignment 2 updates. All right, first of all, let's go to the outline. And the outline is in announcements. to the drop-down menu for new items. Writing assignment to outline. This is
So confusing.
outline for writing assignment number 2. That's the title of the announcement. And here is the outline. Now, it's an outline. So it gives you a structure. Simply putting a phrase or a word in there does not complete the assignment. I need narrative. I need sentences. I need for you to tell me what it is that your version of each of those sections looks like. Okay? So, any questions about the outline? Mr. Labonte?
Yeah, I'm curious on what numbers and letters actually require a discussion below it. So for instance.
All of them.
Okay, so every single letter and number you want something written in.
Surely do. Just like you're writing an article.
So
Any question, Mr. Moses?
So program theory, reason to believe X and Y could be like you want, write something about that, right? And so on and so forth.
That is correct. That is exactly right. Do you have a program theory?
Yeah, and then the hypotheses for the program,
Yes, sir?
and then the intervening variables affecting X and Y.
Yes, sir?
So you have, you're gonna just list them, and then you have A, B,
No,
C.
no. You're going to discuss them. So if you say, the base hypothesis is service quality yield. If service quality, then
Customer satisfaction.
thank you. Intervening variables include, this is hypothetical,
Yeah.
the variable trust. The variable trust has been used in research and customer service found in such locations as authors, titles, journals. The trust variable will be scaled as per previous uses of that variable in the research cited above. Right? Right? Now, eventually, you're going to get to a scale of trust, right? As it calls for scales of the intervening variables, correct? Okay, so in that section, you're going to indicate that the variable trust will be derived from a scale called, whatever it is, used by whoever. It consists of 15 items. Each item is has closed-ended response set of agree to disagree, one being disagree, agree being fine.
So you talk about this.
That is correct.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, so the hypotheses for the program, and then you're going to write basically all about each intervening variable and explain it. Okay.
Where you got it in particular,
Okay.
why you're using it, what makes it important. And if you say it was been used in the literature, then you're going to give me more than one citation. 2 is still not enough. How many people use this variable? 1? Is that a trend? No? Talking to my personal trainer the other day. Where'd you go on your vacation? Went to the Mohegan Sun. I said, you're not serious, are you? She said, why? I said, well, first of all, it's off in the woods. You just sack lunch and a flashlight to get there. And number 2, when you're there, they take your money. She said, no, I won. Really? How much to win? $100. I said, then you lost it, didn't you? Well, not exactly. Oh, how exactly did you lose it? Well, I changed table games, huh? They saw you coming. So if you win one time at Mohegan Sun, they make a trend? So if I find one article in the literature, this is trust, okay. Anybody else use it? If not, then the second consideration is this, ladies and gentlemen. If this is going to be a capstone, and I'm planning on most of you doing it, when you start throwing in variables that look sexy, like trust in a customer service setting, which very well might be, you're going to have a large enough data set to carry a variable of that size. And if you're going to come back with 110 responses, you're making that, it's burdening the data set. You're not going to end up where you need to be. So the first rule is always keep it simple, right? Now, in that regard, let me just mention something. And I want you to write this down, review it on the video, do whatever you do to remember what I'm about to tell you. It's not the first time I've told you, but it's occurred again in a capstone. Never, I repeat, never gather data on age, income, time, money, or any accepted scale that we use. Inches, feet, meters, kilometers, miles. Don't ever put them in brackets. You're gathering data on demographic variables, as they're frequently called. Not simply to describe the population that you, or the sample that you got, for which that's useful, certainly. But they're in there because they intervene somehow. And if they don't, they shouldn't have been in there in the first place. That's why here is where we want to make sure that you're choosing the right intervening variable. Since age, time, years, money, miles, feet, inches, or accepted scales, we just accept them, right? You are giving up data if you collapse them into categories. So for example, if age is an intervening variable, and you collapse a natural scale variable, which would have intervals of equal length, i.e. 12 months, you've given up all that data. You've given up information is what you've done. You've taken it and you've crushed it down, and all you can do then is count the number of occurrences of people responding to that category. But that's all you can do. So if you have age and you say, which category you're in, 18 to 24, 25 to 30, 31 to 34, all you can do is count the number of people in that category. They're going to say, yes, that's where I am. Now, can you do a mean, median, and mode for me? No, you cannot. All you do is count it and say, okay, I had 16 people who were between the ages of 18 and 24. Okay, I could have done that in univariate analysis and told you I have 16 people who are 18, 19, 20, whatever they are. I've got a range. I can see it. Now, if I want to create brackets later on, SPSS allows for that through a simple recode function. It's under transform. But why you want to do that is a mystery to me. Now, be advised. Write this down. If you collect it in brackets and you bring me your data for your capstone and you want me to help you with SPSS, I can't fix it. If it's already in brackets, that's the way you collected it. I can't fix it. You can't take it apart. You can't assume what the average would have been. That's dumb and pretentious. And what you did was mess up. Don't do that. Drives me nuts. Never collect age in brackets. Okay? Can I make that even stronger? Never collect age in brackets. Or time, or money, distance, dimensions. Don't. You're giving up data.
Dr. Hall, I have a question.
You can't do anything with it once you've collected it. Is that you, Ms. McKinnon?
Hi, how are you?
Well, welcome to our world.
Welcome, how are you?
Okay.
Good. I hate to interrupt, but I do have a question then regarding these two things. So then, if I still wanted to do something with age, would you just then recommend that I'm collecting the exact age and there is no scale?
Age has a scale. It's called years. And I would select I would ask my respondents to tell me how old they were in years.
Okay. Easy as that.
That's it.
Great.
Don't overthink this. There are certain people who are continuing to do that as we speak this semester. So age is age. Ask them how old they are. And the same with income. Now, do not fall prey to the argument that I've heard some, even recently, alleged knowledgeable folks say, well, people won't give you information if you ask them what their income is. They're more likely to respond to brackets. No, they're not. They're no more or less likely. And even if you collected them in brackets, income in brackets, what are you going to do with it? What'd you do that for? Because it'd be interesting? Okay. How interesting can it be? You got 4 brackets of income. You can tell me how many are in each bracket. I'm fascinated. Bowl me over. Tell me more. I can't. Exactly. What was the median income in here? I don't know. What was the mean? I don't know. What's the most frequent income reported? I don't know. Okay. Now that you don't know any of that, my interest has dropped off the table. More importantly, I've asked you to treat them as intervening variables. So I can't know if, in fact, age, income, or any such other variable changes anything between X and Y. And there's a way to do that. It's called test of associations. And you will note that there's a forum set up for that. And I believe it's currently on. Now, we're not going to touch, I hope, well, we might get to association tonight, but the first step is test of significance. So we're going sort of a step-by-step analysis process here. And this is the way you would do in data analysis. If you look at any article in the literature, this is the way they do it. They give you a description of the data. Then if there's some sort of hypothesis testing, they give you the test of means or the ANOVAs. They give you test of significance. And then they get to the major meat of the thing. Were there any relationships in here? Is there any association? Was anything found together? Now, Ms. McKinnon wants to find mentorship and organizational commitment together. X and Y have to be found together. Remember the heat and boiling? What's boiling?
Water.
What makes the water boil? And if you see the water boiling, can you feel the heat also? And if you don't believe it, you can stick your little hand in there. What are you going to feel? Hot, hot, hot. Boiling of water, X and Y are together. The unit of analysis is where you're going to find X and Y together. So you're going to have a unit of analysis, and you're going to observe that unit of analysis in hopes of finding X and Y together, not in just one observation, but across a pattern, a large enough number of people or units of analysis, so you look to find a pattern. That's what you're looking for, because that's what tests of association seek. And if you go back to lesson 2, there are some factors that need to be in place for cause and effect, right? X must precede Y. No other plausible explanation. A reason to believe that X and Y could be together, i.e. program theory, and a pattern of mutual change. Now, no one is expecting you to go into the field for your capstone and come back with a cause and effect locked up. What you're looking for is enough observations to find a pattern, if there is one, to see if X and Y are in the same place together, and that would be the unit of analysis. Mr. Aiello, you had a question.
Yeah, I was just going back to what you said about age.
Yeah.
So if I did age when you started smoking, that would be acceptable?
As an intervening variable, I don't know. You'd have to find out from the literature.
Yeah,
Number 2,
yeah.
Suppose the literature confirms. Then if you're asking me, how would you collect that data?
Yeah.
Then you would say, what age did you start smoking, blank, parentheses, year.
So we can use age.
I didn't say you couldn't.
I thought you were saying.
I did not say that.
All right.
I never said that. Did you hear me say that? Ms. McKinnon, you didn't hear me say you couldn't use age, did you? People make
Just
stuff up.
don't use brackets, is
Don't
what I
use
got.
brackets.
Just like, if you see a bracket is important.
Yeah, no.
That is correct.
Keep the brackets out.
You can
Back away. Get away,
I
quick.
get what you were saying. You could always, if you wanted to, put it into brackets, but you can't take it out of brackets. That's what you're saying.
That's exactly right. You know,
So just, see you later, bye.
once you burn the food, that's it. You can't eat it, right? Okay, it's too late. Can't fix it. Can't turn it into sausage. It's burnt. I'm sorry, that's the way it works. Same thing with variables. Choose them carefully and then collect them appropriately. And if you don't do that, then you come to me at the capstone, and this happened again this semester. Where's the age thing? Well, here's my instrument. And I looked at it, and that's not what I approved. I would never have approved that. Well, somebody said fix it, change it, and I'll get more results. Okay, did you? Did you get more? How do you know you got more? If you didn't do it, now that you have it like that, what are you going to do with it? Well, I was told to do it. Not by me. I didn't tell you to do that. Never collect age in brackets. Please.
I got a just quick question. You said earlier about just the outline and what George asked and what Mike was talking about. For like just go from the bottom up where it says 3 scales of variables, you go up to 2 hypotheses. We don't need anything there. That's just a section of each.
That was for,
What?
yeah, so, no.
Just do this.
So if you start right at the top, right, Dr. Hall says, program theory, reasonably vexed, and then below it, you gotta write
Part
things
B,
on
yeah.
the things below it, correct?
Yes, fill in there.
So like, wait, you
So you
do
do
want to
this?
fill that? Or that?
It would be difficult to develop the statement of premise without referring to, particularly since I've given you as an outline heading, why you're putting these two things together. Where'd you get it? Is there anything that led you to believe that?
What would be the difference of that and part B right there?
Part B, program theory for X and Y. That's what I said.
Yeah, so,
But if you do number 1, if you go through each letter.
Oh, wait a minute. I see what you're saying.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? And then like, you go down to part 2 where it says
Here,
hypothesis.
look. We're using the X, Y's of premise of where we want to be. All right. And the program is based on program theory. All right? Now, this whole section is one. You have program theory right here. in the
Gotcha,
beginning,
okay.
right?
So you wouldn't need it for part 1, part 2, or part 3. You would need it for anything
You
that's
need it
filled under.
for where it says you need it.
Right,
Right?
that's the big question. If it could go into each house, you need something here, you need something here, you need something
All
here.
right, look, just like any outline. Here's the first Roman numerals, the first section. This is like a heading in a textbook.
Yeah.
Right.
All right? So this is the first chapter. Here's the second chapter. And here's the third chapter.
Okay, so you start with
These are
1A,
headings within the chapter.
so you start with
Yeah.
1A, 2A, 3A.
Yeah, that's fine, that's, because when you first said everything, that's why we got a little confused, that's all. But now
Yeah.
it's clear, that's clear. Thank you.
Start with 1A, 2A, 3A for.
Right.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir.
No, I'm confused.
Good, we're all confused.
All right, so no longer confused?
No longer.
I wouldn't say that, but okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Now, if you're confused, let me know, because apparently I messed up, so I would have
Right.
fixed it if I did.
This question I can clarify, if you go back and forth.
George, why don't you get up there? It's our,
Yeah, is that okay? I will, that might make me.
Should we move the camera?
So, you have, we're not writing anything in this little section, right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
You write something here,
Yes.
you write something here.
Yes. That's a heading.
Right, we don't write anything here, but we write something here,
Yes.
here.
Yes. That's a
Nothing,
heading.
nothing here, here,
That's right.
here, here.
Those are paragraphs.
Nothing here,
Oh.
here,
So go this way.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes. Nothing here,
That's a title.
yeah, yes, we write something here,
Yes.
here, here, here.
Yes.
All right, so the A,
Perfect.
Thank you.
And Mr. Levine, correct me if I'm wrong, haven't I given you outline before?
Yes, you have.
Not like this.
Not like this? I thought they were almost exactly like this. Slightly different subject, but I was trying to be detailed so there'd be no question about what it was you were going to do.
Confusion came down to like.
You start at one.
Between the heading and the title, and
Yeah.
like you said chapter, and I think it was just confusing. That clears it all up.
All right, Mr. Labonte says he's clear now. Ms. McKinnon, are you clear, or have I confused you also?
No, I'm not confused, but did you get my paper?
I did.
Okay. Other than just, yeah, so I guess I could talk offline, but that's really the biggest change then, is not grouping age and not grouping tenure.
Right, and I think I said that, didn't I?
No, I don't think, I didn't get it back.
Could have sworn I sent it. Well, it might be still in my inbox.
No, not a problem. I'm just making sure, because I just want to make sure that
But
I understand since I have you live.
it sounds very familiar. I don't know, maybe it's deja vu and I'm having a psychic thing. If you're asking about the age, you want to find out if age is an intervening factor.
Yep, and then same thing with tenure, which is also years.
Junior league people are undergoing mentoring, then you would want to collect individual ages.
Correct. Okay, that sounds good.
And the same with tenure, how long have you been around? As I said earlier, you don't want to bracket time.
Right, okay,
So you could do that in years or portions of years.
okay, that sounds good.
Good, because if you don't do it that way, number one, you can't find out any intervention, and that's because, number two, you gave up data.
Great.
You
No,
know,
I understand. Okay,
it's expensive to give up data.
okay.
So, given now that we seem to understand the outline, where are you in developing it, Ms. McKenna? Let's go with you first.
Can you ask your question, where am I developing what?
For writing assignment number 2 in the outline that we now have projected on the screen, where are you in that outline?
Well, I finished my outline. You have my paper, right?
That's a draft, correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, well, yeah.
Well, I saw, it's in my inbox, I glanced at it, I could have sworn I did it on Sunday too, but I guess I didn't, because I remember thinking age and tenure. Anyway, I'll take a closer look, and then return it to you post haste.
Cool, thanks.
So essentially, you finished the assignment and draft, and you're waiting for my review.
Correct.
Okay, Ms. Lowe, where are you in writing assignment number 2 in the outline?
I just need the paper tonight.
You're going to send me a draft tonight?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You know,
Complete draft,
yeah,
not with sections left out.
no. You know, once I smooth out
There are people
my
who send me
questions, I
drafts with
can
sections
do.
left out,
I-
which really isn't a draft. That
I didn't know how to do those two.
I mentioned no names. Ms. Cipriani, where are you in the outline?
When I'm working on the first part, which is pretty much the part that we did in the first assignment.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Not so far.
What did you send me?
Yeah, I sent you the writing assignment too, but it's not completely.
No, it's not. So, it's not really a draft, is it?
I'm gonna complete it.
Okay, so I can just delete that and wait for the actual.
Yes.
I think that'd be my plan.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Schwartz. Where are you in the outline for writing assignment 2?
I have a better understanding right now as to where I'm gonna plug in the information that I already have.
Okay, so you don't have a draft yet,
No.
but you have time to put one together.
Yes, I did.
Mr. Yopes?
Yeah, the only thing I didn't understand was there was 2 parts and they just kind of hit on the same thing as the intervening variables affecting X. And the scale.
Is that a question or is that a statement?
It's kind of both, but it's a.
Okay. Could you
I'm
ask
not-
it, could you ask it clearer for me so I know what you're asking?
Because the first part that, just for the outline that I sent you that I didn't do, that I left blank was the intervening variables affecting X, and the second part was scales for X.
Those are pretty important sections.
I get that, but I just need more clarification on what that would consist of. The intervening variables affecting X. And scales affecting X.
All right, so you're going to do some sort of community policing project.
Correct.
And you're going to measure that. One way to do that some of the literature you sent me, seems to be a measurement of police service quality.
Correct.
Okay, well, we can substitute that, at least in draft, as the X, correct? All right, and then we're going to try to build up some additional trust in the community as a result of whatever this program
Yes,
is that
yeah.
we're going to measure with the service quality of police. Okay, so something that comes between the service quality police procedure working activities and the trust on the part of the community, something can come between that's called intervening.
Yep.
Comes between. Are there variables the literature has pointed to that affect what the relationship between what police do and how people in the community feel about it?
Yes.
Okay. Give me an example.
Did you want just one or the three that I chose?
Give me one and tell me where it came from.
Just one would be legitimacy of, like, perceptions of legitimacy.
Okay.
And it came from Rosenbaum.
Is Rosenbaum the only one to have done that?
No.
So there are others?
Yes.
So there would be multiple references and multiple citations in this section.
Yes. Yes.
References would be later.
Correct.
All right. Now, that's fine with me, Mr. Yost, but this takes us back to the discussion we had with Mr. Moniz about trust. How many items on this, what's it, legitimacy scale?
Yes, sir.
It's a Likert type scale, I guess.
Yes. 5 items.
Well, that's not too bad. Scaled 1 to 5? Agree, disagree?
Yes.
Okay, 1 being low, 5 being high.
Correct.
Okay, so you only have 5 items. That's okay. But bear in mind that the data set will have to be substantial enough to bear the burden not only of the X, the Y, and now this the legitimacy variable, but 2 others. Right? So you don't want to overburden the data set. You know, it's starting to be spring, eventually. And each spring, after the winter, and my children believe they are entitled to park anywhere near the asphalt of my driveway, which frequently isn't the asphalt of my driveway. The grass where they were parking is now dirt, actually mud. So I will order some topsoil and I'll put it in a wheelbarrow. And I'll move it to the spot where I want to put the dirt and the seed to cover up the ruts that were put there by cars other than mine. You get the picture. Now, I can pick up an amount of topsoil to put in the wheelbarrow. And I can get to a point where it's sufficient to do the job I want. But putting more in there will make the wheelbarrow more difficult to handle, make the job more difficult, and increase the likelihood that I'm going to spill the topsoil, which costs me money. Right? Okay. Think of your data set as that wheelbarrow. So the more you pile in there, the heavier it gets for the data set. Now, the data set can be larger with greater numbers of observations, in your case, citizens, right? And that will help that will make the wheelbarrow bigger and therefore more stable. So you want to think along these lines now, rather than April of the spring in which you wish to graduate, or December or whenever, and come in with a data set which has 101 respondents. And if you do, you're going to have probably a great deal of missing data, because there are going to be some people who just get tired of filling it out, or whatever they do, I don't. Mm-hmm. So you need to compensate for that by thinking about it now.
Okay. I guess with that, what would be the difference between the intervening variables affecting X and what would be the difference between intervening variables affecting Y?
The literature. I don't know, in your case is a particular example, Mr. Yost. When you go looking for measurement scales to match your X and Y, it is unlikely in every instance that you're going to find the X and Y already together. Correct?
Correct.
And I think that's the case in Mr. Labonte's situation, right? Look for that test of knowledge.
Yeah,
Okay, you haven't found one. Not of community policing subject matter.
correct.
Okay. Are there other places that you can find those scales? And yes. There are general
Maybe,
knowledge scales, there are knowledge scales of specific fields other than community policing that we can adapt. Okay? Now, if I use that kind of scale, then what I find as intervening variables there in that kind of situation may not be the same ones I find in community policing. So I'm looking for a combination, which ones are the ones that appear in both, as close as possible. Only 3.
Okay. All right. So these 3 intervening variables affect both of them?
Yes.
Okay. So
Eventually, in your research, that we're going to find out if that's true.
Okay.
So the first thing is to find them.
Yep.
And to develop what's the consensus that we can come to of looking at the literature about which ones are most likely to affect the X and Y.
Okay. But what would be the difference in us discussing them, like between parts 3A and 3B, like scale for X, discussion source, scale for Y, discussion source?
Well, in the scale for X, you're going to be talking about, in your case, for example, the general police services scale.
Yep.
And in the Y case, you're talking about the trust.
Okay. And then for the intervening variable?
Well, you said legitimacy was one.
Yep. So we would combine, part C where it says hypothesis for program, and then C1 where it says intervening variables affect the X, Y. That would be the same thing. They're not different is what I'm trying to.
No.
They're the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That clears it
You're
up.
not going to suddenly drop a new set of variables on me once you get past the hypothesis. Never.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
No. Mr. Moniz, where are you in the outline?
I'm at the very beginning. And I
Okay,
still-
well, now we-
Yeah, and my biggest issue is scales. Because I gave you something and you replied to me to scale it back.
Yeah.
So that means, do I go and?
Look at what I asked you to scale back.
Yeah,
I didn't tell you to get rid of the X.
right, but you said the
You had,
trust, loyalty, and relationship
yeah,
satisfaction.
that's a lot of stuff in there.
So,
Let's,
so trust, I get another scale for trust that's
let's
small.
take it out altogether because it's a fairly lengthy instrument, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant. I'm trying to keep you in the context of your capstone.
Understood.
So if you throw in, you've got an X scale and a Y scale, they're going to be sufficiently intense enough that if you start adding other variables that are that big, like what was it, relationship, trust, and
I had,
reputation or whatever else was in there,
yeah, I
you're
had,
going to need, instead of talking about 120 units of analysis, which may be all you can get for whatever reason, you're going to need 320. And I'm trying to go with what I keep seeing most people trying to do, and most people attempt to get 100, somewhat slightly more, because I said 100 is the smallest large number.
right.
And I keep saying, don't treat that as a floor, or as a ceiling, that's the floor. That's where you start. So you want more than that. Now, I don't know, you can do this, Mr. Moniz, you can get data from Flash Gordon, Flash.
Flash.
At some point I knew I was going to say Flash Global. You can actually interview their customers. Yes? Well, that's another reason to back this off a little.
Right, so, but I guess the key is this, right? So the way I was looking at this was, number one, you have an X, and then you have a Y. So I got 2 things to approach each one of those. And I
Two
have.
things? You mean
well,
2 scales?
2, I'm sorry.
Right,
2 scales.
okay, I got it.
Okay, so that was I have a scale that says, service quality, it has response, reliability, and assurance. That's serve qual, that's how they measure quality, right? Service quality.
Yeah, I know, but that's not the one I sent you.
Well, the one you sent me didn't really have service quality.
You sure?
Yeah, because there was no, that's what I told you, there was no questions.
Let me look at it again, because I wanted you to stay away from serve quality. It gets too cumbersome, and there's more to it than just those items.
So that's why my biggest issue is my scales. I mean, I understand what I need to do.
Well, let's go back and look at what I sent you, and We'll talk about it at break.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Levante is looking for scales of knowledge, right?
Yes, but,
First of all, let me back up. This section in the training academy for community policing, how long is it?
it's 10.5. Well, it's actually broken into sections. There's actually one that's like 6 hours of one, and then add on that, they're up to 1 hour.
So 10 and a half hours. Okay. That's not a great deal of content. Test doesn't have to be that long, right? So I could go into the literature and find the osteoporosis test for 0.85 alpha with 20 items, adapt them, and I got my community.
The problem with writing that, and I've looked actually for one for Alzheimer's, for example. One of the items is mind exercises to prevent Alzheimer's. How can I adapt that into community policing?
How long do I get to think about it?
You could change that any way.
I was about to say, how long do I get to think about it? If you can give me time to think about it, there's an adaptation I come up with.
All right, so I found
You can't take it out, but you can follow the pattern. What's the pattern of the questions? That's more important,
Okay, I can see
right?
so the only question that I have, and I just got a little more confused, is scale for X. Now, in the February 18th class that we had upstairs on the 3rd floor, you said it so clear, and we discussed, and you don't remember what you said, but, so that's what I'm trying to get the recording, if you have any of the recording.
It's like gold. Everybody wants that recording.
Everybody.
If remember right, it's something to the effect of your X scale is the Y scale, but private to the actual program, the private X, I think. So if I'm doing a pre-test, post-test.
Whoa, wait a minute. We're mixing and matching here all over the place. In order to establish an association between two variables labeled X and Y, one has to occur before the other. That is a factor in determining cause and effect and or association. So, the convention is the variable that comes first, the one you're trying to manipulate, the one that occurs first in time is X, and the one that responds to it or is supposed to result from it, or will be found after it, that's what we call Y. All right? Now, if I give a pre-test, post-test, let's say for your community policing, the test that I give them, pre-test, will be the adapted test of Alzheimer's or osteoporosis, whatever it is, a legitimate test of subject matter that's going to be covered in the 10 and a half hours. And what I'm going to get is a measurement of what the cadets, the academy students know before they start. Okay? Then I'm going to instruct. That then becomes the X. Now, if I'm smart, I'm going to measure that. Because it's most likely that you did not randomly select people in the academy.
No, I
No.
didn't.
You didn't. They might have been selected by someone who was claiming to do it haphazardly and based on certain criteria, but you, when you're in front of them, will not have selected them randomly. So then we will, that's the imperative to measure the X. So I need an instruction scale, a teaching scale, a teacher effectiveness scale. I believe I mentioned the SEQ. Student evaluation, something. I think the first two letters are student evaluation. I don't remember the Q. Okay, so let's just do this simple for a moment. So if I'm going to teach them about community policing, I'm going to instruct, and that's going to be the primary delivery process of the 10 and a half hours, which most likely it is. Then the test has to capture what that content is going to be. That's the pre-test. It's going to be the same test as the post-test. Now what I wanted them to do is, before I give them the post-test of knowledge, is to give them the X scale, because X was supposed to put the knowledge in place that wasn't there before we started, or more of it. So I would give them the SEQ, and then I give them the post-test. Now I can find out, was there a difference between pre-test and post-test? And that would be a matched pairs t-test. Okay, that's a test of significance, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then if it shows there is a difference. Does that mean that it was the X that did it? No, that's not what it means. Tests of significance don't tell you about association. They don't tell you if cause and effect work. That's not what they tell you. They tell you that something went on, but it may not be the X. It could simply be random chance. It could be the wobbling of the instrument. It could be the weather. It could be any number of other factors that accounted for whatever the difference may be. And just because the difference in pre-test, post-test by using the t-test is significant, that doesn't mean the absolute value of the difference was great. That's not what the t-test does. So that's another reason why you want the X to be measured. Now, if I've measured the X, and I have a paired X and Y for every student in the community policing program of 10.5 hours, and I get a large enough sample, then I can start doing data analysis, seeking a pattern among the observations I made to see if there is X and Y in the same place. That's what I want to know. That's my premise. That was the hypothesis. And whether it's community policing training or community policing work or bank teller quality service or bank services or patient care and patient satisfaction or training and skills or mentoring and organizational commitment as Ms. McKinnon is working on, I need to measure the X. And then I need to measure the Y in the same place. Mr. Ayala, where are you in the element?
You know, I sat down the other day to get some stuff done, and then home was on, so I had.
Oh, yeah.
Boomer.
There's so much smoke over here, I'm gonna have to walk to get the fresh air.
Unfortunately, I have them ending here in my bracket, so.
So you'll be too busy tomorrow night at 10:07 to work on it. Me too. After the Sunday game, 3 of my family members rushed in and said, "Are we going to Syracuse?" Why would I go to Syracuse? It's a hole. It's a giant hole into which snow falls, and Syracuse University is in the middle of it. How do you know that? They ask, because I'm an adult. I said I went there. Have you ever been in that place, the Carrier Dome?
I've been at Carrier Dome, though.
I've been there for a football game and for basketball. Oklahoma won both times. For the basketball game, they put a big blue curtain at the 50-yard line. Yeah. And from the 50-yard line to the end of the goal, football goal, that's the area that is.
For a basketball game?
Yeah. So that means that even if you have courtside seats, which I did because I sat with the Sooner Club, they're so far away. And there's so many people in front of them. Coaches and TV and cheerleaders and special guests, they're all you can see from their waist up. You can hear the ball bouncing and you can see heads moving. And no, I'm not going to Syracuse.
You got in some trouble. You don't want to go there now. Sure. You see that? You got in trouble? They've been paying athletes off and all that. You're done for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that just hit the press.
Yeah, count that out.
Okay, guess who already knew that? So when you wake up early on Saturday morning, where are you going to be in the office?
I'll be working, but when I come home from work,
Uh-huh.
I will be going to the outline.
So that would be at
confused.
5 p.m., 4 p.m.?
I get out at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Well, I have Friday. I'll get some done. But I'm driving myself crazy with this.
Are you?
Yeah.
This means, you know what this means, Mr. Lavani, what does that mean? When I hear something like that?
I was listening.
I know that. What did you just say?
I'm driving myself crazy.
What does that mean?
Didn't get you.
That's correct.
Yeah, of course.
This is a
Let's do it.
classic symptom
Yeah.
making it harder than,
One.
yes.
So I'm doing.
So you haven't started on the album?
I haven't. I've been looking through the scales and stuff. And
You have an X?
Yeah, the X
Just tell me
is-
the X, the variable name. What do you call it?
Product knowledge.
No, that's not.
So
What comes
the
first, the brochure or the knowledge?
Brochure.
Thank you. So which is X and which is Y?
Brochure is X, knowledge is Y.
Which comes first, the presentation or what you said about during the presentation?
Presentation.
Correct. And the knowledge follows with the presentation.
All
Okay. So what do I need? I need 3 scales.
Yep.
I need a scale that measures the readability, usability, quality of the brochure. Are there such scales? Yes. I need a scale that measures presentations. Sales presentations would be one of the first places I go. Salesmanship is a term, despite its sexist terminology, is a term that appears in the literature. And that's what you're doing, right? So I'm looking for a scale that does those 2 things, and then I need a product knowledge scale, which generally is recall and recognition, which is found generally in the, well, you can find it in the outreach literature. Under social marketing, I've seen a number of them in which they actually give them a test, Mr. Mello. I remember seeing one from India. Now, it wasn't about smoking, it was about another situation. Sexually transmitted diseases or something, as I recall.
So these scales don't have to be directly
No.
related to.
No, if you find one, jump on it.
Yeah, that's where I was getting hung up on.
No, I've never said that. Wait.
I was trying to find the mega article of articles.
With the exception of Mr. Moniz.
It's like everything.
With the exception of Mr. Moniz, who didn't have PA 501. In 501, and we started, the assignment was to find Y scales, right? And then didn't I say on more than one occasion, does it matter where they come from?
Yeah, but I thought that was just for the class.
No. It was a general rule, and it applies even now. You have something left over from 501, or did you switch that? You switched that.
501 was about drugs, and like the Phoenix House.
You know what?
That was about recovery stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a different X.
Mike Morris did a program, I don't have a brochure of that, but you guys see portfolio, I'm sure. Mike Morris.
It's the doctor.
Now, special for you, what you owe me. This is, Flora has the capstone seminars, so a number of people have done everything you're doing in a different area. Does that matter?
No.
It only matters that they got scales that measure brochures.
Right.
And it only matters they have scales that measure product knowledge and intent to act. They're gonna be at least half dozen.
All right, so now my question is.
But they found them in the literature, so you can go there too.
Right, but you just said.
Yeah, remember.
Right, this is where I guess, you just mentioned to me it needs 3 scales.
Who are you pointing to?
Mr.
Aiello?
Yeah, yes,
Mr. Aiello is not Mike Munners.
correct. So.
Mr. Aiello is doing a different XY. So don't extrapolate from what I told him to you, except in the general sense. X precedes Y. You need an X scale, you need a Y scale. He has 2 X causes that really in the literature you will find are supposed to work together. The print stuff and what you tell people.
Yep.
And they're really 2 parts of the same thing. That's why I'm telling him what I told him. Okay? But he still needs an X scale for the brochure and a presentation scale and a product knowledge scale because they both go to product knowledge. And that's going to be a simple, it could be a true-false test. It can be what you recall. It could be like open-ended blank questions, fill-in-the-blank kind of questions.
I have one.
I've seen both of those in the literature, plus others. I would stay away from what you think you know. I hate those things. So that's a big difference, Mr.
Understood.
Between what you're doing and what he's doing.
Okay, but doesn't he need now 3 scales?
He needs intervening variables, yes, sir.
Okay, that's where I was going.
So now intervening variables.
Well, I haven't got the X and Y yet, but in marketing and advertising, in outreach, generally speaking, what do you find are the typical intervening variables? Gender, education, and age. Now, is that necessarily the same in smoking prevention literature? I don't know. But I do know that overall, in advertising and marketing, those are what you're going to find.
A lot of the scales that I'm finding is like whoever they're, asking to take these scales of like, when did you start smoking? What
Okay.
age? So would that be an intervening?
Yes.
So that would be okay?
Yeah.
All right, because I found a ton of that stuff, but I'm not sure if, because now I gotta look at brochure and product knowledge. I wasn't really looking at brochure. Because I was making a
Well,
bunch.
Yes, you were.
Well, Dr. Owen, what you said,
Hold it, just a second, hold your question with you. All right, now, if we use brochure presentation, we have scales.
Yep.
Okay, and we have Y as product knowledge and intention. Intention act. Now, in the presentation and the brochure, you've got to tell them what it is you want them to do.
Yep.
And it needs to be manageable. Now, quit smoking. All right, sure. Think about what it is that they would really get them. Seek out help. Call this number. Go to this
That would be
location.
the intention.
That would be what you're wanting to act on. Make it manageable, make it clear.
So
Now,
present them with the brochure, and then afterwards, to help you with this, there are people that it's their job to help. Here's a number.
here's the number, and that should be in the brochure, and that should be in the presentation. The brochure and the presentation should be the same, two sides of the same thing, right? Now, so I've got X as brochure and presentation, I got Y as knowledge and intention. Now, what comes between? What age did you begin smoking? Okay, collected in brackets?
No.
No. How old were you? Okay, now, you keep saying you find it,
Yeah.
right? Okay, I'll accept that because I said be guided by the literature. Anything else?
There's a bunch of stuff. I found a self-efficacy scale, but I didn't know if that was getting too deep into it.
Well, it's admirable that you and Mr. Moniz want to take it to that level. I appreciate that. But I don't want you violating rule number one. Right.
I don't want to be.
Exactly. I want you to graduate, and I want this to be a good capstone. And I want you to be standing up in front of everybody, telling us how well it was done.
Yeah.
I don't want to give you a bailout question. It's all right, Mr. Allo. If you had to do it over again, what would you? I don't want to give you that question.
Yeah.
That's a bailout question. I want you to bone me over one way you can. All right? So now I got an X, two X's, I got two Y's, I got an intervening age variable when you started. What else are you finding as the intervening variable?
There's a bunch of different stuff, but I feel like they're just too complicated.
How about gender? Does it matter between males and females?
Yeah.
Okay, now, if I collect gender data, there are only two genders, right? Well, no, that's wrong. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. That was so 20th century of me.
Way more.
There are way more than two genders, right? Which you can collect. But let's start with the male-female. Right? If I collect male-female, I'm going to have the male, female, check one, right? Okay. Now, when I put the data into SPSS, they don't need to know what I did, what I'm going to do. All they need is just check the box, right?
Yeah.
Well, one of them's going to be 0, and the other one's going to be 1, right? Now, suppose we want to collect data on other genders, on the LGBT community, okay? All right, you can do that. But every time you do now, each gender category becomes yes, no. So that means one variable each time. So lesbian, transgender, gay, bisexual. Right now I got 4 variables. Even if I do male and female, which is okay, by the way. I do male and female here on 1, I can have other, right? But now other is another variable.
So other would be 3 or 2?
No, it can't ever be that. No. You'd have a male, female as gender, right? And I would sort of name it the variable like that. And then the other variable would be other. Under values, males are going to be 0, females are 1. And under other now, under values, it's either yes, you are other, or no, you're not. Now, as soon as you appeared in the first category, 1 and 0, you're automatically a 0 and other.
You couldn't add a third.
Yeah, you can. It just becomes a third variable, and you have to do it the same way. You can't start doing 1, 2, 3 because you can't do math with them. That's like adding males and females. Can you do that? No, you can't. You can't add people like that. They're not math. And where we need to go with this is arithmetic. We're going to do multiplication, we're going to do division. That's what's in the formulas underlying the test of significance and the test of
Could
significance.
you do what gender were you at birth?
Okay,
What gender do you wish to associate yourself with, Mary? Wouldn't that be it?
okay. What are the categories?
Well, gender.
Male, female, wish not to say?
I would just keep it simple
That's
and
a
just
third,
stick with
yeah.
male.
Yeah, no, I know you're saying it's a
I would
third.
too,
Yeah.
Just male and female.
unless you're going to do a significantly large.
Well, I just want
Population.
to be, you
And I-
was adding the other
Well,
ones.
I'm trying to be oriented to current gender identities.
Yeah, at birth, like what gender you at birth, because otherwise if someone says, well, I have fitness, I'm not gonna answer it, now you're missing that.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
you say at birth, can clarify. that.
Everyone was, yeah.
You don't have any-
And it may be for this first run through, that if you're going to be chastised by members of the LGBT community, that you just grin and bear it to get your capstone finished.
And then in his findings, at the end, he could,
Yeah.
that would be a finding, right?
Could be.
That you
I was
did-
abused for only having one gender,
Yeah, that's-
or two genders, yes, okay, that would be an unexpected finding. That's right, and that's in the outline. Okay, now, Mr. Aiello. Beginning tomorrow, perhaps again at 5 p.m. on Saturday, you make it harder than it is.
Hopefully not. If I do.
Well, I
I'll
can't
be
account
sure.
for anything beyond what I'm seeing right here, so
Now, what would you do for education?
I did as much of it as I could, frankly.
I'm trying to, that's why I'm here.
How would I collect the data?
Because
Now,
I'll be
let's think
asking
about this.
college students.
Think about this,
Yeah.
okay? If I ask them education,
Yeah.
and then what would be your proposal? What would be the first thing that come to mind?
What they're currently.
What class are
What's your
they?
highest-
Freshman, sophomores, junior, senior?
Okay,
Oh,
let's
okay.
say you're
High
freshman or sophomore.
Yeah.
How you code that?
Freshman 1, sophomore, no.
Freshman 13, sophomore 14.
Upper class, lower class, upper class.
So you only want
You
two,
can
is
do
what you're
that.
saying?
As soon as you start doing 1, 2s, and 3s, you can't, with natural categories or names, you can't do math with them. You cannot add names.
Well, what if I say, all right, lower classman, freshman, sophomore, upperclassman, junior, senior? And they say, hey, I started when I was in 5th grade. It's like, you son of a bitch.
Right.
So why can't you just say,
So, let's make it simple for them, shall you?
Yeah.
Shall we?
Yeah.
Years of education.
Kid, yeah, kid.
How many total years of education did you
why can't you just say, do you have any post-secondary
12?
education? Yes.
Well, how
have?
does
That
that
gives me the
help?
freshman.
Because he's doing it with college campuses.
I'm going to college, so they're all going to say, this is my 13th year, my 14th year.
Okay, let's say they say that. I don't know what they're going to say, but let's say they say that. Now, let's do it your way. Freshman or sophomore. I've only given them 2 choices. So some of them are going to be a lot of freshmen and some of them be a lot of sophomores. Am I any better off? I can't do anything with that.
So ask them just how many,
How many years of education did it?
that doesn't relate to the tobacco use. Does it have to?
I don't understand what you mean. It doesn't really.
So
I don't
if
know.
I
You're
say-
telling me that age, are you telling me that education is a factor in cessation of smoking programs presented through presentation and brochures? That's what I understood what we were beginning. Is that not true?
But it has
Otherwise,
to be true.
we've been going in circles for no reason. If you want to collect age or education data, the best way to do it is to collect the number of years.
So just click
Into
how
the
many years
store,
they've.
just into the store.
And that's acceptable?
What else are you going to do? How old were you? You got how old they were started when they were started?
When they start.
How old are you now? Essentially. How many years of education did you go through after you started smoking? We can find that out. Is there an association between those two? Is there a short period of time? Is it long? I don't know, but if we put it in brackets, where I do it sophomore, freshman, sophomore, and I got 0 and 1, okay, all I can tell you is there's a some or not association between what class level you identify. But now with data, I can do stuff. Age when you start is associated with the amount of income or the amount of education. Possibly. I don't know that. That's where we're at. All right, Mr. Young, where are you on the outline?
I am just pulling together my scales for my intervening variables.
Okay? And you're doing the video,
The video
it's a promotional video. And the intervening variables between the promotional video and the why of knowledge and intent is,
Yes.
are
I have gender,
sources,
yeah,
citations, references,
Yes.
more than one,
I can get more.
more than two,
I have probably two.
you get more than two?
I can get one.
Okay, I'd be happier with more than two. All right, so you got gender as one. How are you gonna code that?
0 and 1.
Perfect.
I have primary language,
Okay,
English, or yes, is English your primary language, yes or no? 0 and 1.
right.
That's how I was gonna do that.
Yep.
And then, was
You
you
got a
born?
citation for that?
Yeah, I'll have.
More than one?
I probably have one left. I'm gonna look for more, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, I just wanna be, you know.
And then my,
Because if we're gonna go down a path, I'd like to know that it was well trodden before we got there. Otherwise, we're gonna spend a lot of time gathering data we may not even need.
yeah, these are good intervening variables.
Okay, and the third one?
Were the country of origin, were they born in the United States?
Yes or no?
Yes or no? Those are my three. So I'm just gotta get the sources together for you.
Okay, all right, that sounds promising.
Dr. Hall,
Yes.
question.
Yes, sir.
So education.
Yes,
You
sir.
just said that we could find out how many years someone's been smoking through that, but if they take years off between.
No, that's not what I meant to say. If I said that, that's not what I meant. What I said was, if you collect data on age at which you began smoking,
Yep.
and you collect data on years of education,
Yep.
then because you're collecting both in years,
Oh, okay,
you can run some associated tests to see if they're somehow related,
okay, all right.
which you couldn't do if we did
0.
education credential or education freshman, sophomore, whatever.
Makes sense.
That's what we want to be, all right? You want to take a break, you want to press ahead?
I mean, I have to go to the bathroom first.
We'll go to the bathroom, take a break. All right, Ms. McKenna, we're going to take a break, and we're going to talk about tests. No, we're going to talk about research design first, pardon me. So, Ms. McKenna, stay tuned, we're going to take a break.
And we just asked you, I could do so I did it today, but I didn't do it the other time.
So we did.
Do it maybe next time.
Which is
2 weeks from today.
April 7th. Remind you.
I will, I'll send you an email.
Yeah, and send it to Mrs. Flora, too.
Okay.
Dr. Hall, how does applying for graduation work? You have to do it 2 semesters before you?
No. Do it at the beginning of the semester where you think you're going to finish.
Okay, all right, perfect.
And there's a form that you fill out. Mrs. Flora has them.
Okay.
Right, so then you should say, this is how I went through, I knew it on, how many years of post-secondary education you have? That was a good number. Instead of saying how many years of education, because you can assume that everyone has 12. How many do you have? That could be one, how many years of post-secondary education, and they'll say, someone might have started school and then they left and came back. So they could be in school for 2 years, you know what I mean? And it's still not done. But I mean, that's just what I would suggest, to make it easier. Right.
Here's a moment.
Okay, now this was one of the scales that had some, like some questions.
What's the name of this?
This was the hospital.
Yeah.
So communication with nurses, communication with doctors, responsiveness of the staff, pain management, communication with
Hold on. That one is the one I remember, yes. Now, this is the one I said could be adapted. Okay. How many items? Not that long, is it?
Nope.
That's the one I prefer to use. Okay, so all we gotta do is worry about the adaptations, right? All right, so go to the first one, what's the first one say?
communication with nurses.
Oh,
You following all this?
Basically,
I'm not sure,
basically,
You what?
you cover everything or they're commencing.
I'm kind of,
you're 5'9".
They could
I
possibly.
mean, 599, it's like this.
Yeah.
Those people in either of those units have titles,
This should this be pretty easy then? I mean, can you just copy this
global,
and capture?
upsize global representatives.
Because this is the outline, it's not
Yeah.
like follows your
Something like
caption.
that.
So communication with doctors.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Represent.
Well, that's why I wanted to like clarify, because I really appreciate that.
Okay, what's the first item?
Nice.
Hospital staff, all can be nurses, treatment, courtesy, and respect.
During your last encounter with Flash Noble, you treated, what was it, with courtesy?
Yeah, with courtesy and
Okay.
respect. Okay, I get that. That's what I can understand how to do that.
Okay.
And then the next one is communication with doctors.
Okay, that's essentially another level of management.
Right.
So we have contract with them for level management.
So I could do C.
Oh.
Yeah.
You done? You done?
So I would get a little clearer.
If I've
Yeah,
been
you got it.
successfully finished my counseling graduate.
You will.
Totally.
Responsiveness of
This year.
doctors.
That's awesome. When are you giving a presentation?
Global Flash Noble staff.
I think I'm the 8th, which is not much.
So soon.
Yes.
It's like a month away.
Now, these are, okay,
Not
so when I
much
look at
time
those, right,
How you doing?
they
You doing
have
okay?
the X's.
That's it.
Are you doing okay with it?
All right.
You okay? Other than this is probably getting in the way. isn't it?
Yeah.
This and,
So that's,
I'm still trying
Burns
to
Hospital
get
Health
familiar
also
with
is your
what
patient
should I
officer.
do.
Poster
So that could be.
Cheese and other back covers.
Problem, there you go.
Huh?
There you go.
Maybe
I
sure.
like it.
Rather than get the
God, so
I'm struggling with
And that is.
Hey, bring it up.
No.
Oh,
like how to use it
That's what
on
I
my
got.
end.
just
There
wanted
are
to
questions that I have to answer in order
What?
to
I'm sorry?
finish out
Communication about
what I
medicine.
started
That's
from
how it,
my
we
premise.
have service programs.
So in order to
Saturday,
improve my
Saturday
business,
at
I
5:01.
need
Yeah,
to
hey, you know
teach
what?
and I'm struggling with
5:01.
the data
Just getting
in
the
order
scales,
to
to understand, you know, like the variables, but this is cool, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all there, it's just trying to figure out how to use it.
Communication. That says discharge information,
I'm over that.
and that's a yes or no.
It was class, you know, just don't get me,
Discharge.
the time, you know how to do that, then you understand. When I do
Well, the
something,
resolution.
I'm talking about like, hair regression, like a bunch of stuff that like I don't say, understand, you know, what I mean? So I'm hoping that they shall understand.
During this hospital, the doctors, nurses, hospital staff check.
Not
about
really,
whether you
not
have,
You'll be fine, you'll do good.
I'll move anyway.
help you need it.
Okay, just say doctors, nurses, class, level staff, and then help you need it, what do you want?
Okay, and, in hospital environment was cleanliness.
When they come to Flash Noble, do they Flash Noble have,
We have buildings they could go to.
do they?
Yeah, yeah, they do. Okay. Visit the warehouses. Okay. Overall rating.
That should be just global stuff.
Yep.
Okay,
All right, and then it says here, willingness to recommend.
Comes straight here from work.
Okay.
that shouldn't change.
Right. So that's good. We can use that. All right. Then, what I have for later, customer satisfaction, the lowest. And the white line, I have customer
Strategies and
satisfaction.
services. And that's of a specific program, which is Chicago Alternative. So
Where did that-
strategies and services
That
of
came
program
from,
plan.
I just guess.
strategies and services. I don't know.
Is that what was I said?
Does it have to be specific to?
Because that,
be
the
specific?
other one's not going to move it, nothing had questions, that's why I was struggling. You know what I mean?
So the caps.
I
Let's see what you
actually,
got. Tell me what this came from.
So what
Is
would
that
be
an
another
alpha?
example of that?
oh yeah, that's with the reliability.
Right.
Yep.
Like certain segments train, can be trained by 5 to 18 different trainers.
Yeah.
So. Like, for sure, we have to figure it out.
Yeah, so they have like a, with that program, it's called a, I don't know, I keep showing this thing. They have a,
Service call,
Service
they
quality,
have a,
trust and patient satisfaction.
All right, now tell you to the instrument.
they have a beat
The
community.
The one you, yeah, the one you were
meetings.
showing me. It's an adaptation to
So
this.
that's part of their thing is they have
Okay,
it's
let's see
called
what you
beat
did. How many
community
items?
meetings.
It was only, four.
You changed custom patient.
That's correct, and then I just changed, the service process by flash building, I just changed.
No, I know that.
Yeah, now
Doing
this,
good.
so now the intervening,
Yeah.
what
So
I,
this project is, you can put it in, all you're gonna do is.
but,
But I would,
I understand.
you don't have to make a final decision, you know. And I don't
think
wanna keep you from doing what you
trying
wanna
to
do,
keep it like
but I want you to get a lot of technical.
I understood what you're saying, and I think,
Right, right.
so that's why I was really gonna revisit what I
Program
did, because flash building was
The
too
program
small,
we have
and the custom set is too small for me, like, you know,
So that's
to
not the X, the X is.
but at least I understand what I'm going for, you know what I mean, like, I do, I
The other
understand
one, you can get that
I was
from
thinking
there,
that too.
really, I wouldn't get them up, because they lay around.
Scale for
because it's.
the strategy, I just took like the strategies.
So
and
if I
strategies.
use these, if I was to just scale this back here, like the number, the scales themselves, because I got a lot in there, is that what you meant? Like, you know, see, because I have
Yes,
three.
not the ones that we've just talked about as
No.
X and Y.
Right, but the intervening, I
So-
can reduce this.
Yes.
I get.
There you, particularly if you're gonna have small number.
And the trust, I can get it, this much trusted. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Moore, I have a question. One reason we were, a week ago, when we were upstairs,
Yes.
when when he was going over
Yeah.
the SNAP, you had told me,
What am I looking, oh, SPSS?
yeah, SPSS, you had told me what goes in.
No, I know.
That's the variable view.
Right,
Okay.
variable view, but you had stopped by where I was sitting, and you told me
Other examples.
to explain to you what
Existing.
goes over
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
I did?
That measured.
What it
I'm
said,
wondering,
what such and such, and I didn't catch what you said.
Do you have your instruments, samples thereof?
I don't have anything.
And be- you know what I'm saying?
I was trying.
Or do I?
What
need
goes
to
in
find
here
something that
are going to
measured
be
caps program?
Truncated names of each of the items from each of your instruments, plus the intervening variables.
That's what goes in.
That's what goes in here. And then you follow through with these pictures. Put the whole question up
I
there.
might be able to follow
Here's
that
where you
just
put
as a
the
police program.
response kit. 1 to 5. Missing data, you want to use them. Okay. You introduce the scale.
I like, yeah, no, I like that.
There's a however.
Yes. You don't have,
Something more.
I don't think you have any intervening variables in the combination.
Oh, yes, I did.
Yes.
It's like, whatever.
Thanks, George, that helps.
Hopefully.
Yeah, no. That's what tomorrow will be, so I just talked about, thank you.
There isn't.
All right, Ms. McKinnon, we're back. All right, let's talk, there's a form on research design.
Great.
And of course, in the capstone outline, there is a section, Roman numeral number 3, research design. Now, the essence of research design is comparison. You really don't have research unless you've got a comparison. This is not just a function of having to do data analysis and so forth. Don't you do comparative shopping? Ms. Lowe, you do not? You're an impulse buyer?
Actually, I am. Sorry.
Busted.
You've been in America too long. Chinese are thrifty folk. You need to return to your roots.
Okay,
Get rid of the plastic.
that's true.
There was a thing on Tom Ashbrook today about the iPhone apps that you can do, and you scan at a vendor, and it goes directly to your bank.
Yep.
There's no check. What was it? The proponents kept saying it reduces the friction of a vendor-customer exchange. So handing them cash apparently creates friction. But nonetheless, everyone does comparison every day. When you go home and watch TV, you do watch TV, don't you, Mr. Ayala?
Of course.
Exactly. Don't you compare programs? When you were watching the alleged tournament last weekend, well, it wasn't alleged. Allegedly, you were watching the tournament.
Was that Oklahoma?
Were you? Oh, you did not. You
did not.
You were moving across
Who's in
games, though,
this
weren't
one
you?
now? Oh, yeah.
Okay. So you were comparing games, were you?
It was close to the end. I was watching that one.
Yeah. See? There was comparison. Now, we do that all the time, so it's a natural thing. We do it because it gives us a base from which to make some judgments. And it could be as simple as a preference judgment. But we make judgments. We're going to end up making judgments about our data. Now, we want the data that we're going to use for those judgments to be as informative as possible. And it begins with having a comparison. So, you're going to use your scales of X, Y, and the intervening variable scales for making your observations. Now you want some comparative features in there. Now in research design, there's some fairly standard comparison approaches, beginning with the gold standard of comparison, experiments. What makes experiments the gold standard? The robust comparisons that are available in an experiment. Now, the first thing in an experiment is you select randomly the units of analysis. Random selection is at the heart of the comparison. Why, you ask? Because random selection allows for the groups that are going to be either experimental or control to be the same makeup when they begin. So they're essentially the same in the beginning, which you can find out with the pre-test. Then in the post-test, when you find differences, if there are any, the only thing that should be different is the experiment got the X. Because everything else was the same, right? So, there's an experiment going on as we speak. You know the Kelly brothers, the astronauts? One of them was married to Gabby Gifford. He's the one who remains here. His twin brother is in space. They're going to run experiments to see what changes, if any, each of them undergo during the next year. One is in space, one is here on terra firma. They're going to do all sorts of measurements and observations. Now, the reason they're using the twin brothers is essentially they're physiologically alike for all intents and purposes, right? That's what random selection does. It produces groups that are essentially the same. Now, one of the few times I'll let you go to Google. If you go to Google, and you type in random number table, just as I have, you should get images for random number table as the first result in the list. I'm going to go to the first random number table on the left. And I'm going to, let's see, open it. Okay. That's not what I wanted. No, that's not what I wanted. I hate PDF. I really, really do. I outsmarted myself. Yeah, let's do it this one here. There we go. A little bit better. It's only part of a random number table. It's the one on the far right. Did you follow me?
Yep.
Okay, so do you have this?
Yes.
All right, does everyone, does Lydia have this? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Ms. Yost, you got it? Ms. McKinley, can you see this all right?
Yep, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Now, if you are going to use random number selection or random selection, this is where you begin. Now, you could generate random numbers by using SPSS. Excel has one also. It's up to you. Not that hard, but somebody's already done it for you. Now, let's say that we are going to do an experiment. Then we need to select two groups. One experimental group and one that's a control group. Stop. All right, now, we want significantly large numbers, do we not?
Yes.
Okay, so let's say we want 300 in each group. So, if we want 300 in each group and we're going to use random number selection, we have this random number table in front of us, right? So presumably, if we're going to choose randomly two groups of 300 people, a total of 600, somewhere we have a list of them and we've numbered them. I think I've mentioned this before. One of the first pieces I got published off the managed care scale I did, we did random selection. And my naive colleague, having apparently gone to SUNY, Collegiate State University of New York, had not been taught random selection, but had been using the word like he knew what he was doing. So I said, yo, dude, here's random selection. Number one, get the book of psychologists from the entire nation. And he did. And there must have been, I don't know, 1,500, 2,000 in there. I said, all right, the first thing you do is you start on the first page, you start numbering all the way to the end. And he did. Fine. And he came over to the house, he sat at the table, and I said, okay, here's your first random number. Now, let's imagine we have this list of 600 people, numbered 1 to 600. Correct? Everyone with me? Mr. Yost? Okay, this could be police officers, members of the community. It could be students at CCRI. It could be the junior league if it was large enough. It could be multiple Latina institutes. It could be multiple corporations like Flash, Global, Mr. Onis, or it could be larger numbers of service locations for Mr. Young's video. So we're looking for numbers between 1 and 600, correct? Right? Yes? Everyone follows that, right? All right, so we got this random number table that I'm looking at. The first three-digit number I encounter is what? 614. Does that fall between 1 and 600?
No.
Okay, what's the next three-digit number?
142.
142. How do you know?
I don't know, just next.
It is next, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't have to skip 3 digits and move to the next 3 digits? No, you just move over 1, right? Very good, Mr. Hibbs. We did this in 501, didn't we?
Yes? I don't know.
Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 4. What do we do with 1, 2, 4, Mr. Hibbs? That's our first random number. Now what do we do with it?
Would you assign it,
No?
or would it already be assigned?
Well, when we began this, I said I had a list of 600 people, didn't I?
1 to 300.
And I had 1 to 600.
Yep.
Didn't I?
Yes.
Now, I'm selecting 300 for each group. I'm doing it randomly, right? So, I have 1, 2, 4,
Goes into 1.
1, 4, 2,
Yeah,
1, 4, 2, right? So what do I do now?
Put it in one file.
Put it-
So just,
You put it in one file.
what do I put in 1 file?
You correlate that number with the number in your book of the 1 to 600.
I'm going to go down to the list of 600 names. I'm going to find number 142, and that name becomes the first randomly selected unit of analysis. Goes in the experimental group, right? What's the next 3-digit number, Mr. Hibbs?
424.
Go back to the list from 1 to 600. I pull out number 424.
Opposite group.
Now, every one of the 600 people have an equal chance of being selected for either group, correct? Because it's all random. That's what makes them alike to begin with. Now, you don't have to do it that way. You could do it like NASA's doing it, where you do matched pairs, which means you're only going to work with twins. That has been done, by the way. Some research that was released only last spring, as I recall. I pointed it out to Logan as he argued with me about smoking marijuana. Which, according to Logan and the various websites he visits, apparently on the deep web, marijuana can increase your concentration, help you work out, and become stronger. I said, that's interesting, Logan, because, and we did this, by the way, at the bowl game tailgate, because I went back over this. I said, that's interesting, because at Northwestern Medical School only last spring, they did a random sample, no, they did a matched pairs, sample of 300, as I recall, where they took units of analysis and matched them on key characteristics. So males had certain characteristics they wanted to match. They'd match with another male that had that same set of characteristics. Same with females. And they did that 300 times. And you can do it that way. But that's hard. And it requires a large grant and probably important stuff about studying marijuana and its effects. And by the way, the effect is it changes the frontal lobe of males between 18 and 24. It replaces the pleasure center with marijuana. Therefore, the pleasure seeking that most normal people do no longer works. And it stays with you for life. Try telling that to Logan.
You won't find any pleasure out of it.
No. Okay. That's simple random selection, right? That's how you do it. Has it been done in the capstones? In my experience, the answer is yes, although fairly rarely, but it has been done. I have personally done it. It does take some time, but I wouldn't do it the way I did it, but it can be done and it's manageable. But the gold standard of comparison is beginning with groups that are essentially the same. Okay? Now, if they're essentially the same, because they had an equal chance of being selected for either group, then you give them the pre-test, right, Mr. Labani? All right, so we need, of course, to know what it is that the Y is so we can be able to make the right test. Because the pre-test is the Y. Now, it's an experiment, right? With the beginning point of the groups being exactly alike, do the pre-test, run the X on only the experimental group, and then do the post-test. It's the same test as we gave them in the beginning. It's Y. Now, strange as it may appear, the X is being measured also. In an experiment. You either got the experiment 1, or you were in the control group 0. That's not the same thing as measuring X with a scale, is it? Now, since even with an experiment where you're dealing with human beings, I would still recommend measuring the X directly rather than by experiment. But the gold standard of comparison is the experiment, correct? Does everyone understand why? Okay, it starts here. This is why. Then there's a comparison before. Then there's a comparison after. Both within the group and across the groups. Correct? So when I said it had a robust comparison, it starts with having the groups be essentially the same and then doing those multiple comparisons. Now, I mentioned matched pairs. You could do it that way. Depends on the kinds of program you're trying to run. But the matching would have to be done on key characteristics that could make a difference. Now, where would you find those characteristics?
Literature?
Bingo. Those characteristics essentially are intervening variables, are they not, Mr. Young? It's just another way to say it, and that's the same thing you folks are doing when you're finding your intervening variables for the capstone and for your dummy variables. That's why they're matched on them. They can make a difference. If you don't match them, you can mess up what you're looking for. That's why they do it. Same thing here. Now, we can't match necessarily, but we can measure the ones that make a difference as reported in the literature, and then we can run our own to find out, once we have our data back, did in fact they make a difference. But we can't do that unless, one, we know what they are, and two, we've measured them. All right, another form of comparison is quasi-experiments. This is where you do not have random selection, therefore there is no control group. There is, however, a comparison group. So quasi means almost, partial. So with a quasi-experiment, there wouldn't be any random selection, but there would be groups that were as close as possible to being like you, being similar as possible. Then you would run the quasi-experiment the same way you would run the actual experiment. Pre-test, post-test, and if you're smart, you measure the X in the program. Another quasi-experiment, a bit stronger but a little more time-consuming, is a quasi-experiment that involves a program group, a comparison group, a pre-test, a post-test, a measurement of X between pre-test and post-test for the program group, and then 2 or so more post-tests over time. So as you've actually strengthened the research by adding the time component. The assumption, the premise rather being for that is if you made a difference using the X, it ought to remain in place. And if it doesn't, then we can find out when it goes away, if it goes away, and then make some adjustments in our program so going forward we can make that stronger. Presumably we couldn't have done that unless we measured the X. So it's crucial to measure the X. Now, you could do a one-group time series. Now there's no comparison group, but you're using the same group over time, and that means pre-test, post-test with an X, and then several additional post-tests. Pardon me. In the literature, you'll find the term time series, or you'll also find longitudinal analysis. Now, Mr. Moniz is interested so far in a group called Flash Global, and we were talking about data and data analysis and points and data points and so on earlier. And he indicated to me that Flash Global had a relatively small customer population. All right, I said, can you get data from them? And his answer was affirmative. So the first thing is get data for your capstone. Now, is there a way to create a comparison in Mr. Mona's case? And the answer is yes. Is there a Flash Global-like organization in addition to Flash Global? Then we got a comparison, don't we? Now, another way to do it is to do what is called a non-equivalent comparison. So, let's say we have Flash Global and its customers, right? 120, 200, something like that?
Yeah, I think the number of customer, like, companies is 65. There's probably about 130 contacts or something like that.
It wouldn't be the companies that would be the unit of analysis.
Right, it's the contacts.
It's the content, yes, it's the people who respond, it's the unit of analysis. But say Mr. Mona needs a comparison, wants to graduate, knows that I'm asking him for a comparison, can he create a non-equivalent comparison? That is to say, people who are not Flash Global customers, people who may never come in contact with Flash Global or anything like them? And the answer is yes. We, here, in the MPA leadership programs, could be the non-equivalent comparisons, couldn't we? So Mr. Moniz would give a pretest, let's say, to his Flash Global customers. He'd come in here and give us the same pretest. Then he'd have Flash Global work with these customers over the next period of time. Then he'd do a post-test with his Flash Global customers, and he'd do a post-test with us. Now, we didn't get the X, did we? So whatever we put on the Flash Global Y scale, which is what the pretest is, right, Mr. Moniz, should be so substantially different from pretest to post-test and across pretest to post-test that we should see a stark difference. Should we not? Or what have we done?
The program's not.
Something's wrong, that's right. And if we've done everything else correct, then the program is not working. Something's wrong with the program, right? Correct? I mean, right. All right. Now, another comparison one finds in the literature is ex post facto research. This is often referred to as survey research, which I don't like, because survey research is a method. So what you're actually comparing is the program has already occurred, the X has already occurred, and the people have left. The units of analysis are away from you. Now you're going to have to reconstruct who they are, find them, track them down, and find a way to measure them. And maybe more than once. Now, one of the rules that I try to get is actually rule number 4 of the 3 rule. To make it harder than it is, when the instructor gives you an outline, use it. Do the assignment the instructor wants, not the one that you want to do. And number 4, if you're gathering data, don't let a unit of analysis go without getting data. If they're in front of you, get data. Now, having said that, let me make sure that we amend it to include if you can't gather data until you get HSRB approval. Once that's granted, grab every unit of analysis you possibly can and get data from that unit of analysis. Never let one go without data. Mr. Young.
Isn't that what I'm doing though, ex post?
Not as I understand it.
So I'm showing a video.
Yes.
And I'm giving them a survey about the video.
Correct, and the Y also.
Yes.
They're going to be sitting there watching the video.
Yeah.
You're going to come in with the instrument after the video loops for a while, and you hand it to them, right?
Yes.
No, that's real time.
Okay.
This means it's over.
Oh, okay, okay. All right.
The ultimate ex post facto research measure error, but it's in New York, so it's I just thought it was business as usual. I believe it was approximately 1983. Dr. Reinhardt and I were on contract with the New York State Department of Health teaching program evaluation. Well, first of all, you have to have willing learners. Anyway, so over the summer term that we did this, after fighting with me about what a goal was, we finally got down to brass tacks. Now, the program that at least two of them were charged with was determining for New York State whether or not the marijuana smoking program for persons suffering with cancer undergoing chemotherapy did in fact reduce their pain. Okay. First thing we need is a pain scale. What? Pain scale. What do you mean? A scale that measures pain. Now, because they were in the bureaucracy, it apparently didn't get out much. The notion of what a scale was and being able to measure pain didn't register with them. So I do what I have continued to do for ensuing 30 plus years. I went to literature, brought it back in. Here, right here, this is it. See it right here, dude? Right there. Well, that's subjective. Read. Isn't that amazing? First of all, whose pain is it? Yours? You're an arbiter of pain? You get to tell them how much pain they're feeling? Are you a jerk? Yes. Okay, so we got past that. I said, all right, now you're going to have to give this scale to people who have been smoking marijuana. And the guy said, well, I can't. I said, what, some sort of patient-doctor thing? He said, no, they're all dead. Now that's ex post facto, isn't it? But only in New York would you spend $1 million to find out if dead people, in fact, felt no pain before they died of the cancer they were smoking.
A little late.
Yeah, exactly. So, while that's the ultimate mistake, ex post facto research is difficult to do because you've got to find those folks and have them compare, literally, what they did in the past to where they are in the present with an instrument. It's been done, and it can be done. Now, that, by the way, is different than a poll. A poll is not the same thing as using a scale, you know? I know these places, you know, when you give them money, like the main people, the Democratic Party, you give them money to sell your name to somebody else, right? I may have given the ACLU in New York money. I don't remember it, but maybe I did. Anyway, I get one of their surveys. And that's what it is. It's a poll. How important is Obamacare? Very important, somewhat important, not important. I actually wrote in, who wrote this crap? Like, are you serious? You know? And then at the end, do you have anything else to say? No. That's a poll. Yeah, they're closed-ended responses, and it looks like they might have gradations of the categories. But I didn't scale because it doesn't have a Cronbach's alpha, does it, Mr. Moniz? All right, so you need a good, strong scale, and that's one of the reasons I've asked you to find them with alphas, so that when you apply them as the observation, it's not the scale that's going to be making the difference, it's the way you're doing the observation. That brings us to the research design. You want the research design to provide a sort of cushion for your scale so that whatever wobbly amount there might be in it is cushioned by the comparison that you're doing. And the stronger the comparison and the more comparisons you have, the better off you are. Now, that requires planning. It requires time. And if you're going to do capstone work, I recommend that you enroll with me in PA 590 at least one semester ahead, if not the summer ahead. And then once you're enrolled, you actually attend and come and meet with us in here. And then use the fora to do this, so that when you are finished with PA 590, you then can go to HSRP. And as soon as HSRB has cleared you, whether you have additional courses to take or not, you can start gathering data. You can gather data and take PA 505 or LEAD 506 or whatever else you need to take, but because you've prepared and you've got your HSRB and it's sound, then you can gather data, you've got more time, and you can finish up your courses, and then enroll in PA 599 in the following semester. You would have been gathering data for, let's say you did in summer, you start gathering data in September, you gather it at a relatively moderate pace, finish your other coursework, by the time January rolls around, boom, you can keep going. Then you got all the way to the beginning of April, because we usually do capstones either in late April. This year it's strange, a little late April, but it's usually in May, and we've been doing it. So you've got a longer time to gather your data. More time reduces the impact of missing data. You give me more time, and we can come up with a way to fill in whatever the gaps are that may exist in your data gathering. But if you come to me 48 hours before the capstone and say, I really don't have but 20 responses, or I've collected data in brackets. It can't be fixed.
Get away from
You know, it's like Logan in the car that I took away from it.
So you're telling us, don't do
It
brackets?
ain't gonna be fixed.
Just to clarify.
Don't do brackets?
That's what I'm telling you. That's exactly what I'm telling you. It can't be fixed. So, there you have it, all right? Now, the process of selection. It can be random, as we pointed out, and you're selecting the units of analysis, right? Ms. Schwartz, who are your units of analysis?
It's the customers.
Bingo. All right, so Ms. Schwartz is in the bank. She could do a form of random selection if she wanted. She could, let's just hypothetically, all right? She's standing at the door. 5 people come in, and she's going to take the 5th person. And from then on, she's going to take every 5th person. That's called systematic random sampling. Or Ms. Schwartz could say, I don't want to give up data. I'm going to get everybody who comes in here, I'm going to ask. Okay? That's a purposive sample. That means I'm collecting it from as many people who are like the audience that I'm after, which are customers, and I'm going to get as much as I possibly can.
Then you can random sample from that, correct or no?
Why would you want to do that? You want to get data from them anyway.
I wasn't sure.
If I get 5 people to walk in and I'm going to do a purchase sample, I'm going to get all 5.
Okay.
Right? Because I don't want to lose any data. Now, I can do the systematic random sampling, but I'm probably going to have to come back on more than one occasion, correct? And I could randomly select the days that I'm going to do it. I could randomly select the hours during the day I'm going to be there, and then randomly select or systematically randomly select the people who come in. Okay? I could do a convenience sample. That means I'm going to grab whoever's here and nearby, and I'm going to use them for my data gathering. It's not the best. It can be strengthened a little bit. It may be more common than I would like in capstones, but, I want you to graduate. But I also want you to recognize what it is you're doing. So the convenience sample approach is acceptable. You find it in the literature. And you're going to have to do certain things with it, like making sure that you've got the right intervening variables, particularly the demographic ones, because if you can establish that this group statistically looks like the kinds of people I would get, then you're halfway there. I mean, that's pretty good evidence. I published like that. That piece that I got published in 2010 on the concept mapping, it's a two-step process. One is you spend time interviewing people with like a list of 4 questions, and you transcribe their answers. It's not It's not a structured interview. You let people say stuff. And then I use that to go into a software package that finds patterns of responses, number of times a particular term is mentioned. And then I use that to create a pairs analysis to see, and then I say, we're doing one now, public administration and leadership. If education and services are 100 units apart, how far apart are government and people? Government and you. Government and whatever the other terms are. And then we get that data back, and it makes a three-dimensional map. And it tells you how the space in one's mind looks on average in people's heads. Now, I had to use a convenience sample. I was scrambling. And it worked out. Because I eventually ended up with a large enough number. And when I did, I also collected data on age and gender and so forth. And I used that in my publication by going to the literature and finding out in this field what kinds of people generally are involved. Women, that was the primary number of people I had in my sample. Age, again, what was it, 35 and 50, I think, was the age that you generally found in the field. And then there was a third one, I can't remember what it was. There were three variables that I essentially, my sample looked like that, even though it was a convenient sample. Now that's the extra step you have to take. But it works, and it can be done, okay? Now, once you've selected the units of analysis, you've identified it and selected them, you're then going to have to get the instrument to them and get it back. So Mr. Moniz, are you going to get the instruments to your Flash Global customer? You're going to email it to them, you're going to call them up and do it over the phone, you're going to send it to them in mail?
You send them an email or call them on the phone.
That's two different ways.
You can't do it 2 ways.
You sure you can. It just needs to be consistent.
Right.
What I think might be the best way to do that is to send it as an email and then do a follow-up phone call. That would be the better way to do it. Okay? Now, all of this information that I've just given you in brief is what the HSRB wants. HSRB has its own 4-item form. Isn't that right, Mr. Young?
Yes, sir.
Right? It's PDF. They expand when you put stuff in, right? Okay, if you give them what they want and make it clear, and don't try to be elliptical and cute, they will approve you. Didn't they approve you, Mr. Young?
I had to resubmit once. But yes, it was because I did the 590 class, I had pretty much everything, and I just had to clarify some very small points.
Correct.
And they got back to me very, very quickly.
And if you do that during the regular semesters, they will do that.
Yes.
In the summer, it takes a little bit longer. But if you give them what they want, you'll get through. I've never had anyone turn down. No one has been turned down. Yes, there have been people who had to revise. And among those who had to revise were those people, students working with protected populations. I've got one right now. People under 17 are a protected population. So you need a consent letter from the parent, an assent letter from the student, permission to be on school grounds for the principal, superintendent, teachers in the classroom. All of that needs to be documented. You can't say I'm going to get it. It already has to be in hand. Right? If you do that, HSRB is not. Now, if you also say very clearly, here are my units of analysis. Here is the way I'm going to select them. Here are the instruments I'm going to give them. Here's how those instruments will be collected. I might not even need to be in the room. Teacher can do it, or some other person can do it. That's fine. All you need is the consent of that person. But if you do all of that and don't get cute with the language, you'll go through, even with a protected population. Now, they're also quite keen on, as it turns out, research design. And when I said, I wrote it, I said, listen, yo, dude, people aren't doing research design. That's my job. Well, it bears our name. Okay, well, then you ought to know something about it before you start giving people advice or ruling on it. If you give them what I've just described as the research design comparison, if you give them the selection process for the units of analysis, if you are totally and completely clear with that, they're going to leave you alone. Don't try to obfuscate. Be clear. They're going to want to know the purpose of your research. I want to know if teaching community policing in the academy works. That's what I want to know. And here's how I'm going to go about finding it out. And they give you sections in which you tell them. Here's the instrument I'm going to use. I'm going to get permission from each student. They're all over 17. I'm going to get the state police superintendent to sign off, the academy people sign off, whatever letters I need. You're going to have a letter from official sources saying you can be on premise and they give you permission to do whatever it is you're going to do as research. You follow me? If you do that and you're prepared, rather than sitting back and saying this is as much as I'm going to do and then I'll wait for them to respond, you're going to be disappointed because they're going to say we want revision. And then if they want revisions, give them the revisions. Precisely what they want. They usually send it in some sort of note form. Respond to every one of those items, and you'll get it done. Now, if you don't do that, if you're cloudy in your own mind about what you're doing, you're not going to be able to convey it to HSRB, which means you're going to run into problems trying to get through. Follow my advice. Follow these instructions here about what research design is. All right? Questions? Mr. Ayala, did you have a question earlier and I kept talking?
I did. It was for the choosing who you're gonna give the questionnaire to or survey or whatever. Would you ever think about kind of having a reserve like 10 in case you have missing data that you can plug in, or is that a bad idea?
No.
Bad idea?
No, as long as everybody gets the same X and it's consistent. All you're doing is expanding the number of units of an animal.
So if you don't, would you use the 10, like the extra 10, or would you just?
I would use as many as I get my hands on,
Okay.
as long as they were legitimately valid.
Okay.
And I wasn't faking the data, sure.
And then for like, say, going to CCRI and just handing it out to anybody I see, that's just going to be.
That's a convenient sample.
Okay. And that's fine.
Now, it's also purposive, because that's the audience you're trying to reach.
Mm-hmm.
And the selection is a convenient sample.
Yep.
Now, I don't know how you're going to do the presentation. You're going to say, look, here, can I talk to you? Is that the way you're going to do it? Or are you going to try to get them in groups?
Yeah, I was going to go to like, I don't know what they call it, but like the little like student population where you go eat between classes.
Yeah.
At Rick, we called it the Don, but just go up to their tables and, give them the pamphlets and have them.
Okay, that's cool, but understand. That's a convenient sample, but back off a little bit. Number one, HSRB is going to want to know, do you have permission to be in on those grounds in that building?
We speak to CCRIs.
You're going to have a letter that says that.
Yep.
They're not going to approve it until they see the letter.
Yeah.
Then they're going to want to know, are you going to inform everybody that's eating that you're going to be giving this thing to about what it is you're doing? It's called an informed consent letter.
Yep.
They give you a sample. And so you need to account for that. And then you're going to say, it's voluntary, you sign off, you agree. You keep that letter, give them the instrument, and then rock and roll.
Then they have to fill out, yeah.
Now, then you need to worry about how you're going to get it back. You can say, you can leave it there and come back and pick it up, or you can say, I'm going to wait for it to fill it up. You stand over here, here's an envelope, mail it back to me. I wouldn't do that. So you need to think that through, and you need to be clear to HSRB in how you're going to get it back to them. You can't, it's probably not wise to tell HSRB or me that you're going to hover over them while they're eating.
Hey, you never know. Their fellow students, they understand what you're going through.
The problem that I had with HSRB was it wasn't clear that from how I presented it that they could at any time back out of it. And so I had to put that in there. How how are you gonna make it clear to them that they don't have to be a part of this? So if you mention that and you're there while they're eating, HSRB might say, you're not giving them an opportunity to leave. You know what I mean? So like.
That's a very good point, Mr.
Those
Young. I'm
types of
glad
things
you
you
brought that up.
have to think about when you go to HSRB, because they're gonna question you on everything. They will question you on everything if it's not clear to them.
They certainly will. And the fewer questions that they pose for it,
Trust me, once
fewer
you-
questions they pose, the better off you're gonna be. All right, let's go to the cloud real quick. Everybody log onto the cloud. McKenna, we're logging onto the cloud here in the classroom.
Sounds great. This is what I need the most help with.
All right, let's see what we get.
That's all I know. It's a little bit, what do you say, you
Ms. McKenna, we hear you logging on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'd love to hear that. No, that's good.
Yeah, this is what I need the most help with.
No, you just think you do. I'm not gonna help you, but don't make it harder than it is.
I mean, I work with them, so I make them.
Okay. I've got the virtual desktop 3 showing to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go into Internet Explorer. Here we go. All right, I'm going to go into sources of PA 503, and in there we were working on a dummy data set. Not unlike the one that you're going to be doing for the final assignment.
Where did you select another resources? Study what's
It says sample data, teacher effectiveness. Okey-doke. Here we are. Now, let's go take a quick look at the variable view page again. Mr. Schwartz, here's the question you posed earlier. This is the variable view page. This is where you tell SPSS what the variables are that it's going to be receiving. I hope. Okay, so This is a hypothetical data set. Ms. Schwartz was asking me about what her variable view page would look like. It's going to look similar to this. Now, I don't know what your intervening variables are, but mine were, I only used one. It's school and attendance. And then what follows is each of the items from the hypothetical Likert-based teacher effectiveness scale. Hypothetical. Follow me? Same with the test. Every item in the test becomes a variable. And now there is a difference in the coding of these two sets of variables that I might point out. Here in the teacher effectiveness scale, this is a traditional Likert 5-point response category set. So I have values of 1, strongly disagree, to 5, strongly agree, right? Sometimes Likert's response sets are 7, sometimes they're 9. I think the most common is 5. But in any case, this is where you put them. They go in the values section, and there's one for each of the items in the scale, Ms. Schwartz. Okay? And once you set up the first one, you can do a copy and paste command all the way down. Now, Mr. Ayala. Where'd you go? Oh, there you go. Sorry. I don't know if your product knowledge test is 10 items. I have seen one. The one I had from some years ago was about a CD. Compact discipline. Perhaps you recall those. I think they're in a museum now. It was a test of recall of the salesman's presentation of features of this compact display. And it was an open-ended set of questions. So how do you code test questions like that? Well, this is the way you do that. Because what you're going to end up doing, what you're going to end up doing is computing a score for the test. A recall test, like you used to take in school, right? Like a quiz. All right, so the way I've coded these, because I'm going to want a test score, is either the question was answered correctly or the question was answered incorrectly. So 1 correct, 0 incorrect. Does everyone follow that?
Yep.
Okay. So, now we'll go to the data view. Did I already compute the test questions, the test score? No, I did not. All right, does everybody remember how we did this last week?
Yep.
Okay, so let's do the teacher effectiveness scale. Ms. Lowe, do you remember how we did it?
How does it go to transform?
We're going to transform. Now what?
Compute variable.
Okay. Then what do we do?
Between the teachers.
Where is the cursor flashing?
The target variable.
So in the blank, right? So what does that mean we do?
We sum it?
You can do that. What it's telling you is it wants a name.
Last time you said we can do sum and.
That's the way I do it.
Yeah.
SUM.
So
That's to be sure that I know exactly what I did, because my memory's fading. But you can call it teacher effectiveness sum. You can call it teacher effectiveness scale. I just call it sum.
I'll just do sum x.
Or you can do it sum x. I prefer to give it an actual name. Now I can't see. No, it doesn't like spaces in the variable name. And that will be the case in the variable view also. I can't see. All right. Now what do I do, Ms. Lowe?
Move to the number expression.
Move to the number expression. Okay, here I am.
Yeah. The number expression is the numeric, that one.
Function group?
No, the number expression and the way add.
Okay, you want me in there, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so now, what do you want me to put in there?
The items under the.
That is correct, so I highlight the item. Now, Likert scales, Mr. Yokes, are called summated ratings. Thus, the title that I'm most comfortable using, Sum Teaching Effectiveness. Because you add the responses to each item for every unit of analysis, and then get a sum, which in this case is 10 items. Now I do a sum by putting a plus sign between the items. Ms. McKinnon, you follow us?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm following. I just, so like you entered all this data before doing this, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay, just making sure.
We've
All
approached
this big,
not having the data there.
right.
By the way, is the likely scale type that you will have for your mentoring and for your organizational commitment. That is to say, a summated rating of Likert responses. Would I be correct?
I'm not sure. I still think I could code it numerically, no?
Well, I think we're talking past one another. Do you have an actual mentorship scale?
Yeah,
How many items on that scale?
5.
Okay, so in variable view, you enter each of those items as a separate variable.
Right.
Then you would go over to values, and in the under values, you would put the response categories for each of those 5 items. What are the response categories for 5 mentoring items?
Oh gosh, off the top of my head, it's like strongly disagree, agree.
1 to 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm debating 1 to 5 or 1 to 7, but I think 1 to 5 is better.
okay. Then, well, whatever the source or the scale gauge is what you want to use. Now, do you see the background behind this open compute variable window? You see the data in the background?
Yeah.
Okay. That got in there because I put it in.
Right. Okay.
Okay, that's the data view. Now, these are dummy data, Ms. McKinnon. This is what yours is going to look like.
Right.
Okay. So then, we have a teacher effectiveness sum we need to compute, correct? So what do we do next, Ms. Lowe?
And hit OK.
All right, Mr. Young, what does that screen mean?
When it says execute at the bottom, it looks like it worked.
Yeah, so, okay, I'm happy to do that. So what do I do now?
Exit out of that.
That's what I'm gonna do. I figured, because I already know what I was doing.
You don't really.
Do I want to say the output?
No.
No, not this. Okay, now what do I do?
Go to transform.
Go to the door?
No. Scroll over that way, maybe?
Scroll. All right, I'm gonna scroll to my right.
Yes.
All right, I'm scrolling to the right.
And that should give you the sum right there for the teacher effect.
What do you think?
Looks good.
Okay, how many items were there?
10.
And they were scaled 1 to 5?
Yes.
So the lowest possible score could have been
5.
10. The highest possible could have been?
50.
So do the numbers you see here in the sum fall in within those 2 limits?
Yeah.
Then I didn't make a data entry error, most likely, correct? Now, do I have missing data in here? Let me see.
It doesn't look like a...
I may have dummy data in it, so I didn't, but I thought I put some in there on purpose. I don't see it.
It would
All
be a
right.
9, right?
It would be. Now, if there were a 9 anywhere in there, what would happen to this column? This new sum column? Suppose there was 9 here. Let's put it there. We're doing the teaching, that's the test. So suppose there was a 9 here instead of a 4. What would happen?
They wouldn't count.
You wouldn't count it. Therefore, would you have a number there?
No.
It'd be a blank, wouldn't it? Do you want a blank there?
No.
Nope. Nope. Now, I only have, I got 35 cases. Now, that means I don't have 35 if I have blank, right? I only have 34. So if I have 100 and I lose one, I don't have 100. That's correct. And you want as much as possible, as soon as possible, as
Who was that 9 to appear? Like someone not answering a question, or?
Missing, right?
It means missing. So it could be missing for a number of reasons. One, somebody skipped it. Two, they found the paper response. I can't make out what it is. Or they something like put it between two categories. And I don't always know what they mean.
Okay.
It could be a number of reasons. More often than not. I believe in the SPSS session a week ago, Professor Verano said something about having an item. Well, I guess you can have one, but that's more like polling data. I think that's what he was using as his data set. He didn't have actual scales. Well, one, and I don't know category. In fact, you won't find one in most liquid scales. You might find a neutral one, but I can't make up my mind, but it's on the scale. If I have another category over the other, I don't know. It's missing data, basically. I don't know it. If I make the blank over here, and I want to put it over there, right? Now,
Dr. Hall, if we do, I'm sorry, if we do have something without a scale and we have missing data, do you still want it to go on this, or do we just leave it off intentionally?
no, you don't. You put all the data you have in the data
system.
Because in the abstract, I don't know what's missing and I don't know what's still intact. Just because we have one missing item on the teacher effectiveness score doesn't mean we don't have, we might not have any on the test. I don't know.
Okay.
Mr. Minus?
You have 10 variables, 10 different tests. If you have 1 9 in those tests, the sum would be 0?
No.
Okay.
Instead of having 1 right, 0 incorrect, I had a 9 where the 0 was, or 1, is that what you're asking me?
No, because what we had over on the left there, the teacher effectiveness. Yeah, the
Right, for the teacher effectiveness, yes.
Yes, so you have like teacher item 1, 10. And if you have 1 9 in there,
You wouldn't have you wouldn't have a sum.
you would not
For that
have a
item,
sum.
for that-
Okay,
for
that's
that
why I just
individual
wanted to
item.
make sure that
That's exactly what I was saying.
Thank you.
Okay? It's gonna kick the whole case out.
Got it.
And you don't want the case kicked out. If the case gets kicked out, you want something to offset it. So if you have 10 more to offset that one, if you get 20 more to offset 2, the larger the number, the less the impact on missing data is on the data set. Okay? All right, so let's do the, let's go to, I wanted to do test of the review of descriptive statistics. Okay, so we go to analyze, right, Mr. Young?
Yep.
Descriptives, frequencies, and the data we are looking for is on teacher, sum. We go to statistics. We want measures of central tendency, standard deviation. We want range. We want the minimum in the data set and the maximum. We want a computation of the students and kurtosis values. And then we want to do a histogram, correct?
Mm-hmm.
With the normal curve. Any questions so far? All right, we are doing descriptive data analysis, univariate, 1. When you do mean, medians, and modes, standard deviations, you're doing it with one variable at a time, correct? Can you do means, medians, and modes? Standard deviations on 2-category gender data.
No.
Well, you cannot, because you have 1 to 0. Now that mathematically will help us later, but all it can do at this point is count the number of people in those 2 categories, right? That's all it can do. You can't do any of this stuff. You need a scale to be able to do measures of central tendency and standard deviations. Okay? So if we hit the OK button, it's running it. Here's our findings. Here's our histogram, right? Hold on to that for a minute. Now let's do a test of significance. Now note that test of significance we do comparison of means. Note it says means as in plural. Right?
Yep.
Okay? So I didn't do a pre-test post-test, did I? So I can't do a paired samples t-test. I can't do any t-test, but I can do a NOVA. All right? NOVA is a test of significance. It's going to compute means for groups on a variable that can have means computed for it. So is that a teacher effectiveness? Did that match our teacher effectiveness scale? The answer is yes. So what are my two groups? Well, looky, right here. Respondent school. And there were two. Only say coded as 1 and 0. Okay? You with me? So what I'm asking is there a difference in the means of the groups from Shea and Tolman compared to the mean for both groups together? That's what ANOVA does. You with me?
Yep.
All right, and all it's going to tell us, if it tells us anything, is that the means are different. And if they're different, that might be good, since we haven't looked at the X yet and the Y together. All right? So we're looking for clues. All right, so this is the step we take. All right, so in ANOVA, what is the dependent variable?
Teacher effectiveness.
That in this case is teacher effectiveness. ANOVA is set up for two groups, one-way analysis of variances, set up with two groups with the same interval or ratio data scale for each, without which you cannot compute a mean for either group. You follow me? So we have an interval scale, which we tested last time with an alpha. It came out, what, 0.84 something? Right? So that was random, pure, absolute luck. So that's the variable we're trying to find out, is there a difference? And then what is the factor? I.e., what are the groups? Respondent school, that's right. Okay? Ready? Well, there's the ANOVA, but it's a little hard. Can you see that? Let's see. It's down at the bottom. I should have gotten rid of the person alpha. All right. It says down here at the bottom, between groups, within groups. What it's doing is working on a formula. That's the math. You can't do that unless it's got a scale to do the math with. The math is in the software. Don't worry about it. So what it does is it does the math and it produces an F statistic. See that right there? Which tells us really nothing meaningful until we look over at the next little box. See where it says SIG? That stands for significance. And what ANOVA is going to do is compute an F statistic and then run a test to see if that F statistic is large enough to have occurred by chance. Follow me? Okay? So the F statistic is computed from these means that we've been talking about. And then the F statistic is compared to what you'd expect, what the software would expect as being significant. And in this case, it comes out the significance is 0.644, which means it's not significant. Instead of numbers, instead of 644, what kinds of numbers do we want there? 1 zeros there. 3 zeros would be Happy News. 0.001 would be 0.010 would be minus 2. 0.05, I'm right at the edge of not being true. Anything beyond 0.05, I don't want. What is this test telling me? Looking at the two groups, the means compared to the mean of both groups together. It's asking, is there a difference in the means in those two groups? And the answer is, in this case, no. And is it possible that it didn't work? No, it doesn't sound bad at all. We don't know that yet. And besides, that is the X that we're running on. So apparently, both groups, from a substantive point of view, they disagree on, or essentially they're rating the teachers basically the same. Okay? Now, we didn't do the test yet. Is there a difference in the Y? Well, we don't know. We would set it up the same way. We would start with, let's say this, we would go to transform, right, Ms. Lowe?
Yep.
We would go to compute.
Yep.
We would take out some teacher. We would take out this numeric expression. And over here, we put
Some Y.
some test or some Y, if you wish. Now, there would be a slight alteration in that formula, which is too late to mess with right now, because if I do it, you're going to get confused, and I don't want to do it this time.
Can I ask you a quick question?
You certainly may.
When you delete all that stuff, is that gonna take off the sum of the teacher evaluation on our data sheet behind? No. Okay. So once it's done, it's
Yeah, it'll go away if I don't save it.
there. Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to save it, and we'll work with it when we use it in. We want to use it. So come in your account. Ms. McKinnon,
Yeah,
you hear you tapping away there. Are you working and learning?
I am. I'm trying to copy exactly what you have into my own right now.
Okay. Well, we're going to, in the class session tonight, you have any questions?
I'll have to work on this more, but I'll definitely have questions.
Okay.
For sure. Okay. I do have a quick question. Oh, well, I'll wait till class is over. Is class over?
Class is over.
Okay. I was wondering if I can come into town to meet with you about my, my capstone project and my outline for 590. Right, okay. Is there, I don't want to take up all of your